Shop for the City of New Smyrna Beach for Wednesday, April 17th will come to order. Please silence your cell phones. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Mayor Cleveland.
Here.
Vice Mayor Perrine.
Here.
Commissioner Hartman.
Here.
Commissioner Martin.
Here.
Commissioner McGurk.
Here.
Thank you.
Let's move right into public participation. At this time, if there are any citizens who wish to address the City Commission, certainly on the budget, please approach the podium. You'll have 3 minutes to address in a monologue fashion. Seeing none, public participation is now closed. I'd like to open it to opening comments and set up. Perhaps City Manager, sir, would you like to do that?
Yes, sir. Thank you very much. Good morning. This year, I would like to do something a little bit different than what we've done in the past. In the past, we have done many budget workshops for each department throughout the beginning of the year, starting in January, and we end up in May. However, I realize that we submit these requests and the wish list from the departments, but you don't see the whole entire list until we get into the actual budget workshop. And it makes it difficult for the city manager and the staff to come back and start revising this list. So what I've asked the interim finance director is to do this for each department with their wish list. Keep in mind, I have not went through this list in terms of priority and what is important to us and to the city. So this is their wish list. We will be meeting with the department directors starting at the end of this month and going through the list. But I just want you to get a glimpse of what their wish list. So right now, if you look at their wish list, it's over $12 million. And in reality, and obviously, this is not a workable wish list to have because it would probably increase the millage quite a bit. And I also asked the finance director to give a projection on our tax revenue for the next year and see what that is in terms of what we have in additional revenue, and then kind of have that number in mind. And also, I just want to make sure that the commission is to keep in mind is the 0.22 increase in the millage that we have committed in the past. So this is the last year that we have to include in the budget based on the union negotiations we had with the 3 unions. So that is a must to be added to the budget. So we're going to have each department to go through their budget presentations, look at the list, and at the end, we will have the commission discussions and we could go through some more numbers for you to look at. So with that, I would like to ask a fleet a maintenance operation to go through the presentation. Mayor, if you would, I don't know if you have any questions.
Yes, sir, we do. In just a second, we'll do that. We'd like to welcome the department heads for the presentation and the workshop. There's a schedule that we are going to try to adhere to. Each department head will present their budgets. Please wait to the end to ask questions, end of each individual presentation, which will allow ample time. I want to thank Shaliza for the order. The batting order is very effective, and I think there was some thought that went into that, so I appreciate that. Kelly and your team, thank you for the setup here today and making us as comfortable as we can to keep our attention going and our sugar high. So thank you very much. And now, just for opening remarks from any of the commissioners, does anyone have something they'd like to start with? Commissioner Martin.
Oh, I think I'm good for now, thanks.
Okay. Commissioner McGurk. Commissioner Perrine. Commissioner Hartman.
I'm good.
Okay, so with that said, batter up. We're ready for David. I understand dress code has something to do with the amount of money you're asking for, so we'll take that into consideration. I heard the word passed out was if you dress for success, you'll have an opportunity to get more. And so, David, you're all set there, bud.
Perfect. Well, good morning, Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners. This is going to be our overview for maintenance operations, and then we are going to take a deeper dive into fleet as well for the whole city. kind of our plan for our presentation is right there on the screen for you. Oop. So this slide essentially shows our entire maintenance operations, what they're responsible for, some of the quick numbers for each individual department that we have, and all of our staffing levels in each individual division. This will have a play as we go a little bit forward in the presentation as well. This is some of the way we measure our success within maintenance ops, some of our expense controls, our savings, the different changes that we're making within our department. One of the biggest things that we try to do is we try to hit our work orders within 48 hours. So far, or in fiscal 23, we had over 1,600 work orders. Back in August, we gave you our goals that we wanted to hit, and this slide here is kind of tracking those goals and where we are year to date. Some of the biggest things that I'd like to point out is our street PCI goal. The goal for the industry standard is 80% of your roads at 60 PSI or better. In 2017, when we had this study done, we were sitting at roughly 70%. And with the money from that point that the commission has put towards this, including the ARPA funding this current year, our current number sits at 86.9, so we are well above the average and trying to keep it that way going forward. But just through all the different numbers, we wanted to give a year-to-date look, and then as we get closer in our August presentation, we'll have more final numbers, but this is where we're at this point, trying to hit our certain KPIs that we installed last year. These are the capital projects that we're looking for as we go into fiscal 25. The street resurfacing, that's kind of a mainstay year after year to keep us from getting backlogged onto our street resurfacing projects. The light poles on South Atlantic and Canal were in the budget last year. They were pulled, so we're adding them back in to see if we can get that approved going forward. The big additional one you'll see is the last one, is the 27th Avenue Playground. So we've had issues, obviously, as you all know, with the 27th Avenue Playground. It's not the right material to be at that site. We replaced probably 40 to 50% of the components, and within 6 months, they're rusting badly again. And realistically, our projection is within the next 6 months, that playground's gonna be shut down because of safety. So the two options, we have two different options that we have, and the company that we're looking at they actually pull all their materials from plastic that was pulled from the ocean. So it's a line of products that is extremely weather resistant. Those are the just overview shots of the two different options that we're looking at for the new potential 27th Avenue Playground. One of the other things that we're looking at this year is the generator over at Fire Station 53. Now, we are working on a grant for this application as well, but to give a little bit of background, it's a 2009. It's beyond its useful life. We're putting money into it. It's not working as it should right now, as we currently have $66,000 budgeted for this year. Our plan is to use that $66,000 to bring in a natural gas line and have all the service done to keep that generator up and running through the rest of this current fiscal year and through this current hurricane season. And then as we move into fiscal 25, replace it with a natural gas generator that will be able to power that fire station for years to come. Because currently, right now, that fire station has the generator and a belly tank. We want to remove the belly tank and move towards a natural gas. Couple different reasons. The longevity of the generator lasts longer with the natural gas, but if we do get hit with a a Cat 3, 4, 5 hurricane and we can't get gas in here, that generator is going to continue to run off the natural gas. We don't have to worry about filling it or topping it off or anything along those lines. So there are benefits to going with the natural gas option. As we kind of go through our Yep.
And the reason we did not apply for a grant for the fire station, because this is a replacement, it's not a new grant, and they would not provide a grant for replacement. So that's why we did not apply.
So as we go through, this is the Public Works admin side. The numbers at the top, you can see the last several years. We have the 24 proposed, and then what eventually was adopted. As we go through, there's several new positions that are being asked for. We're asking for a GIS and operations specialist for 4 maintenance ops. We're asking for 3 foremen and an EVT technician. Some of the accomplishments you can see there that we're continuing to do, and some of them are ongoing, some of them have been completed. But a lot of what we're doing is we're gearing towards 2030. Over the last decade, New Smyrna has seen an annual increase of 2.6% in their population. So based on those numbers, if those numbers hold, we're going to be in the 40,000 population range. This is one of our neighbor cities that has very similar population to the 40,000. The blue boxes are what we currently have. All the graded out and lines through it are the additional positions that our neighbor city has that we currently don't have. And that's essentially where we want to stair step it as we go towards 2030. We don't want to come to you in 2029 saying we need 15 new positions, 18 new positions. We'd like to start stair stepping and getting ourselves ready so we can respond to any resident challenges that are out there. So these are the 5 positions highlighted that we want to add going into next fiscal year. It's the same slide, just add in what we want to add in. And as we move towards 2030, and especially with Innovation Park potentially on its way as well, there's going to be more facilities, there's going to be more fleet assets to take care of, there's going to be additional acreage of parks, streets, solid waste, stormwater. So that's all the things we're trying to prepare our department for as we get towards that 2030 mark. For our facilities division, we have successfully moved our facilities operation away from Smith Street. They are now fully functional at our yard, at our maintenance ops home. We are asking for one vehicle replacement that falls within our replacement plan, and that'll be talked about a little bit in more detail in a couple slides down the road. One of our goals that you saw in a previous slide was putting our city roofs on a plan. So we have over 110 roofs in the city, and our goal is to start putting money into those roofs now, so we don't have to come to you later this year, early 2025, with an emergency purchase order. We want to start maintaining those roofs and get them on a replacement plan. So what we're asking for is $100,000 for 25 to start touching each of these roofs and put some minor repairs done, and then every 5 years we'll ask for a bigger amount of money to do a major renovation on these roofs. Along with the roofs, we want to start life cycle. One of our goals as we move into 25 and the remainder of 24 is to life cycle plan all of our AC units, generators, docks, piers, playgrounds, get them all on a plan so the city can budget for it, finance can budget for it, you know, we can budget for it. We have over 111 AC units that we're responsible for, so getting all those maintained and on the right track is going to be is just a, for the monetary value of all those, we want to make sure we maintain them correctly and get them on a replacement plan. Our Parks Division, this is where one of the foreman positions would be added. And they'll be part of the life cycle maintenance of the playground components. One of the big projects we want to do that we're going to fit within our operating budget there is we want to repair all the irrigation from Sugar Mill Road to 95 on 44. There currently is no water going to those areas, and that's one of our big expenses that we added for the Parks Division, along with the vehicles and pressure washer and things like that under capital. So our Streets Division, this was, we did successfully complete this year 17 miles of road resurfacing, and that was also with the benefit of having additional funding through ARPA, which definitely helped bring us to that 86.9% that we're at now. But we added our traffic calming guidelines. We're going to start life cycle managing some of our hand tools and things of that nature, but we do want to increase our sidewalk repairs, and we want to increase a line items to do some homeless camp cleanup. That right now we don't have a specific line for that, so we want to start adding funds into that so we can be prepared ahead of time. Some of the homeless camps are getting bigger and bigger, and we are working with PD really well and their officers, and it's been a great tag team so far. Our stormwater division, we do want to add, so we've been seeing, due to the aging infrastructure, especially the corrugated metal piping, we're starting to see failures, you know, bit by bit and kind of one by one, and we want to add more to that line item so we can stay ahead of the failure and line those pipes instead of having to rip up the road and do a major repair, replace the whole pipe. If we can get them early enough and we can line them, that'll save the city a lot of money and the residents a lot of grief going forward. Our sanitation division, you'll see in the next couple months, we'll bring the increase that Waste Pro, their standard increase, will be coming shortly to you all. That's within their contract, and then we'll bring a resolution to increase the fees to the residents, which we did last year. Which the resolution we had last year was either 4% or CPI, whichever is greater. So that will be coming to you all later this summer with a resolution as well. Our fleet division, that's where one of our additional requests is the EVT technician. We are transitioning to the new fleet maintenance software. We do have an increase in cost with the heavy duty, and that is part of what the EVT will help alleviate is the fire equipment that we have to send out to get work done or bring in and pay for the travel and the time for a technician to come in and work on our tower trucks and things of that nature. We are replacing this one's already budgeted through ARPA, but we wanted to give, this is a brief overview of the prices that we've paid for fuel from fiscal 23 to our current year to date, and the you know, how many gallons that we've used out of our tanks from fiscal 23 to fiscal 24 year to date through February. Just kind of gives a brief overview of where we're at in terms of cost and things of that nature. And this is, we wanted to give a side-by-side comparison of the adopted budget and the year-to-date budget for each individual division within and where we currently sit. And we do have projects that are going to be done this summer, which will you know, get those numbers more towards the adopted. but they fall within range of where we need to be and where we were planning for this year. This one is essentially just kind of shows more in the percentage side of it. We wanted to give a brief snapshot over the last 4 years of where each division was from year to year, whether it goes, the increase, decrease, or anything along those lines. So in summary for maintenance ops, we are really focusing on life cycle planning and getting those prices down so we can get those replacement values set. It'll be easier to budget for maintenance ops, for finance, for the city as a whole, knowing what needs to go in every year to replace some of these higher ticket items. Very similar to what Kevin's going to speak about with our fleet department as well. And to do a deeper dive into fleet, I'm going to pass the mic to Kevin, and he's going to do a deep dive into our fleet department.
Thank you, Dave. Good morning, Kevin Brinkley. I'm Dave's assistant director with maintenance operations. One of my responsibilities is one of the larger asset classes for the city being the fleet, one of the greater amounts of money each year. So we're looking into next year's procurement, trying to get ahead of it. What I plan on walking us through today is a little bit of an update on what we did or where we're at in the fiscal year 24 procurement, give a snapshot of what 25 is looking like by fund, give a couple of areas of focus and importance this year, and then give a detail of the fiscal year 25, what it's looking like by department. So as you'll remember from my presentation in the fall, our mission is to provide the city with safe equipment, available equipment, and the correct equipment while being good stewards of city resources. These images here kind of give us an example of those things in action. This year we started making safety lighting a standard requirement on all city equipment unless it's requested that it not be included. So four-way strobes are kind of like the upgraded strobes, a little bit more visibility if the asset's off on the side of the road and the worker's present. We're rolling out a telematics program. It's actually capable of coaching good driving habits. We are not to that point yet where we can have it sending messages to the drivers if you're slamming on the brakes or accelerating too much. But the first step is getting it installed and up and running, and we have started to roll that out. We're also always stand by all of our technicians. Any fleet technician at any point in time has the ability to pull any asset from service for safety reasons. And they do that. That's why you'll see things come up in the middle of the year. Any one of the technicians that sees that something's unsafe for the road or could potentially, be a hazard, we ask them to pull it and bring it to our attention. In the middle, available asset, David spoke to it a little bit before, but we started tracking a KPI this year. Our objective is to have 90% of our preventative maintenance occur on schedule. Why is that important? Well, because if you're doing your PMs on time, then you're less likely to have an asset out of service because of some major breakage. Technicians doing the PM can detect something that maybe an operator wouldn't detect and prevent something from happening down the road. It's a little bit trickier than one might imagine because we are still relying on our staff to self-report when their assets due for service by kind of watching the sticker. The telematics program is helping out quite a bit with that on the assets that we have it installed on. But we're also relying on coordinating schedules with staff. So we're relying on them to self-report and also self-report knowing that it's going to be a hassle to their day. So it's a work in progress for us. Along the lines of correct asset, of the assets that we approved last year, we have 16 of them already delivered and in service here with the city. There are 28 that have been ordered and are in the production stage. That includes 14 police interceptors, 3 fire apparatus, 5 pieces of heavy or specialized equipment. So they're all things that spend a little bit longer in production and upfitting. We also have 5 budget items that are marked TBD, to be determined. It speaks to the last part of our mission, being good stewards of the city assets. So we won't just replace an asset because we have one in service already. It's at the time that it gets, when it's life cycled out or that it gets pulled from service for safety, that we also scrutinize its place. We look to see, is it something that we don't necessarily need anymore? Or is it something that maybe even with one piece of different equipment, we can do the job of 2 that we currently have in the fleet, so we can reduce the fleet number there. We actually have 5 DNRs on the list this year so far. DNR meaning do not replace. We're recommending either eliminating that from our fleet completely or replacing it with a different asset type and maybe taking 2 and turning it into 1. I forgot I got to push this button. There you go. So last year, Commission really empowered us to start to do procurement a little bit different, which was purchasing fleet assets based on the equipment need and not necessarily a specific build. We were able to, it's like in this example here, we committed to purchasing a 3/4 ton with a utility body not to exceed $65,000. In the past, we might have committed to saying we were going to purchase an F-250 regular cab, 2-wheel drive gas with a 6-foot nap height, like all of those specs. With this specific vendor, we would have ordered it from the vendor and we would have issued the PO to the vendor and we would have been tied to that piece of equipment, not even knowing if it was going to be manufactured or not. And if we wanted to change that, we would have had to come back to commission and kind of ask for approval. Doing this, it made us much more agile in the market. We were able to get like 2023 models that were over inventoried from multiple dealerships without needing to come back. We basically, once we had the funds committed, we reached out and said, hey, we have these funds available for this type of asset. Let me know if anything comes up. We didn't place the orders, and we have had a lot of success with that. Obviously, this is one of the examples of one of the more successful ones, but we were able to pull that F-250. It is a 2023 instead of a 2024, but it's already in service. We got it for $13,000 less than we expected, and if we had placed the order from Ford, it would still be in production and not here in service. So that was a win. Wanted to say thank you, but also we're looking at expanding that a little bit this year, so that'll come up again. So fiscal year 25, bottom line up front, the asset count is up about 40%. We're at roughly 68 assets right now that we're looking at. The dollar amount is down about 35%. Please keep in mind that everything you'll see in this report today is information that we looked at in the fall of last year. So by pulling it forward into the spring, it's great that we're getting ahead of it. We'll have a lot more time looking at these assets and this information, but also these numbers are not final. Opens me up for some inaccuracies. Don't hold me to that in the fall if I come back and there's a different number. The graph represents the dollar amount change year over year. On the right side of the graph is where Commission really directed us to focus our attention last year. Because of that, we've had some real wins on that side. Public safety and stormwater infrastructure was kind of the focus. Our police interceptor fleet, once we have all of them delivered, this is not as of today, but all of the ones that we have ordered that are coming in this year, once they're all delivered, our average age of an interceptor in our fleet will go from over 5 years to 3 years. So, and that's a very large asset class. It's a pretty significant move. We have 3 new fire apparatus in production, and we were able to replace a lot of stormwater equipment that averaged like 17 years in age just this past year. So a lot of significant movement on that right side. I'm going to walk you through a few areas that merit special attention, but first, this really big graphic. Don't go too far yet. Like it's a lot of numbers, but it breaks down pretty easily. On the left-hand side is the entire fleet recommendation for fiscal year 25 by fund. So 47% of the total amount would be general fund assets, 10% golf, 23% stormwater, airport and fleet each at 2%. New police assets, which could potentially be impact fees, being about 6%, and new fire assets being about 10%. That's of the total. The graph on the right would be what the general fund would break down into by department. So 55% of that being police and fire, and then roughly 45% of that being maintenance operations and leisure services. Drilling down into a couple areas of update and what we're looking at for next year. So when we look at a fleet, we have to distinguish if we are looking at an asset that is assigned to a specific position, or if we are looking at just a general piece of equipment that is used by many different operators. Like, for example, the police department has over 90 positions. Many of them require an assigned asset, the interceptor or a detective using their police car. An example of something that is just a general use asset would be a front end loader or large pieces of equipment that many operators would use. We wouldn't necessarily assign a backhoe to a specific position. But in the police department, we have a lot of positions that require assigned assets. So if they're fully staffed, then we have to keep, a stock of over 90 assets up and running for them. And the top line is the number of interceptors that they require, and like I kind of mentioned before, bringing that number down from 5 to 3 and their average age on an asset class that's over 50 is a pretty significant move. It's also a pretty significant investment in the safety of the citizens, because a newer fleet is less likely to experience breakdowns, probably speaking common sense, but a newer asset is less likely to be out of service, broken down, which means it's more likely to be patrolling the streets and in service. This year we want to focus on that second line down, which is their unmarked sworn vehicles. So those are their admin vehicles and their detectives' vehicles. They're averaging about 7 years in age. And we're also recommending kind of a change, which I'll get into it a little bit more detail on that slide. For fire, in fiscal year 24, we were able to get ahead of the upcoming emissions regulations by pulling forward the purchase of 3 fire trucks. This year, we want to kind of address the demand that's being placed on our medic units. So this is pretty cool. We've actually gotten our telematics into some of the fire vehicles. The graph on the bottom is pulled directly off of the website, so forgive me that it's not, it's not a nice looking graph or anything, but in the middle of it, the third asset down is the medic unit. And this is basically information for 3 months worth of activity, January through March of this year. That medic unit made over 2,112 stops and covered over 8,000 miles during that 3-month period. On the right is a visual representation of just one of those months. So the blue line's obviously showing all the different geographical areas that they've had to travel to, and you can see kind of the concentration of dots in the stops that they've made. So why do I bring that up, and why do I put in those visual representations up there? Our replacement standard for a medic unit is really 4 years frontline and 2 years reserve. So at a minimum, we should already be looking, I'm sorry, I should back up. We have 2 assets right now. We have a 2015 and a 2021. If 4 years frontline and 2 years reserve is a replacement standard, we should already be looking at ordering the replacement for our newest one, because it takes at least a year to get one manufactured. If I had a PO today and called up one of the manufacturers, it would be 2026 before the ambulance would be in service. So it behooves us to get ahead of the curve when it comes to our ambulances and at least order 1, possibly 2, depending on how we want to life cycle it out. But that 2021 will quickly, at 8,000 miles every 3 months and 2,000 stops, it'll quickly be in and out of service for maintenance issues and things like that. The segment of our fleet that probably concerns me the most is our golf course fleet. So I use a story here to give kind of an example of what I've found when I do the investigations into our golf course fleet. The asset on the right in that photo is a 16-year-old tee mower. So it's designed for mowing the tees. And the reason that I took this picture when I was out there was because the day that I went out to meet with the superintendent, both of their greens mowers that we have had gone down and were sent out to a vendor for service. The loaner that they received had just blown a hydraulic line on the 17th green, spraying hydraulic fluid all over the green that the staff was rushing to get cleaned up. And at the same time, the staff was rushing to take this tee mower and put greens mowing reels onto it so that they could put it in service as their only greens mower until they could figure something else out. That is kind of indicative of a lot of what I've seen at the golf course, where their ingenuity is amazing. They're really good at keeping stuff alive, but they've also kind of run into a point where it's kind of getting critical for our equipment, especially with the lag times in production for them. If I order a piece of equipment today, it would take roughly 16 to 20 months to be produced and get in. So a lot of the manufacturers are putting pressure on us to give them letters of intent and things like that. Spoke with the golf course superintendent. What we'd like to do is get funds approved to replace these assets and kind of approach it the way that we did with our white fleet and some of our other assets last year, and basically say, here's our required specifications. There's really only 2 major competitors in our area, Toro and John Deere, but reach out to both of them. These are the funds I have allocated. If you can meet these specifications, call the superintendent, and if he signs off on that piece of equipment, first one to show up gets the PO issued, instead of us committing the funds to them for the next 2 years and hoping it gets delivered in that time frame while, putting greens reels on a T-mower. That kind of shifts the power back to the consumer, approaching it from that manner. And worst case scenario, we take it, if we try this for 2 or 3 months, we get nowhere, then we've taken 20 months and made it 22, instead of, just being 20 and hoping. But I believe we'd see some success because there is some inventory out there that's up for grabs when it comes to the golf course, or to golf equipment. So one last note on the golf course. Life cycling has to do with the pump house. So to put it simply, what I've learned is inside of the green building in the middle of the golf course, there is 2 very large pumps that pull water out of that pond, push it through irrigation lines, and that's what actually runs all of the sprinklers on the golf course and keeps the golf course requires a higher amount of water and nutrients than even our lawns would require. So this is kind of what keeps the golf course alive. The system that runs it is obsolete, a 2003 Flowtronics system. Yeah, the company that makes it has since gone out of business, and the infrastructure that it's actually sitting on is failing. So staff at the golf course have done an amazing job of educating themselves and getting quotes from vendors to get a bunch of different options. Bottom line up front, it boils down to for $300,000 or less, they could get this system completely updated, replaced, and have the golf course running. It's not necessarily a fleet asset, but I kind of put it in line with something that we probably want to life cycle and put an allocation to, or at least have as part of our capital plan moving forward, so we don't get surprises like this. Now the fun stuff, the details. So this slide represents the 45% of the general fund budget that is earmarked for maintenance ops and leisure services. That's the right side of the pie chart. The top one is facilities. That is a truck that is aged out. The gold star for this year's maintenance and repair ratio goes to a 34-year-old trailer in the streets division. I've spent basically 8 times what I spent buying it, keeping it alive. I use the joke, I've said it a couple times in the shop, like at that time I could have just bought 9 trailers and thrown one away every 4 years, and probably been better off because I would have had a 4-year-old trailer today instead of a 34-year-old. But I also bring that up because this is, we want you guys to know this is something we're paying attention to. We're trying to catch these assets and get them out of the fleet. And we're not just bringing to you every asset that has reached a certain part or a certain point. That asset we looked at last year, we knew that we could keep it alive for another year. It wasn't a major, it was a major thing, but it was worth delaying and deferring, and we're continuously doing that. We know that we're going towards a replacement allocation and trying to apply a replacement standard, but we also understand that we have to be flexible. The biggest ticket item for streets is a loader. That's $240,000. That's the machine that moves large mounds of earth at our pit. It's a key element in our sandbag operations. It's the one you see loading the dump truck there at the top. For parks, the 2 parks vehicles that are only 8 years old are the ones that are used to service all of the public restrooms. So they end up beachside a lot. They're used 7 days a week. They're often, run through some pretty harsh environments. It makes them a special case in our life cycle adjustment. We can't really expect a full 10 years out of them before we see any kind of catastrophic failure. But like the city manager mentioned last week, we are looking at a couple of things. We're looking into ways that we can treat these vehicles to kind of extend their life, and then also, is it something to do with the manufacturer or the other manufacturers that hold up better? Is there different types of frames? There's a lot of different things that we're kind of looking at. We don't have the answer for it yet, but it's definitely hit our radar. For the sports complex, their largest item would be a reel mower. It's a pretty important piece of equipment. It's a pretty old piece of equipment that they're using now, but that's the mower that would be used. And it's similar to kind of like what a golf course would be using. It's the mower that they use to mow all their fields down to like 1 inch before the weekends. And they're not just taking, what I admire in their operations is they're not just taking these specialized pieces of equipment and running them hard all the time. During the week, or the early part of the week, they'll actually mow those fields with a cheaper mower, not a cheaper mower, but something that's not as specialized and a little less expensive for us to replace or keep alive. They're only using those reel mowers to cut it to those playing field surfaces before the weekend. This is the police department. That's a third of the general fund expenditures for this upcoming year. Instead of interceptors, we need to update their unmarked fleet, kind of like I mentioned before. These are their admin vehicles, the criminal investigation division. There's an interesting component up for replacement this year. There are 2 vehicles that are currently assigned to our narcotics task force officers. What our recommendation is to, instead of purchasing unmarked vehicles for them, purchase interceptors. And what that does is, yes, we're taking an unmarked vehicle and making it an interceptor, but it gets our interceptor fleet up to the required number. And the narcotics task force officers are better served through a rental program that a lot of other local municipalities are using, where basically you don't want an undercover officer in a vehicle the same type of vehicle often. They call it getting burned, but basically once you know what car they're driving, you kind of know who they are. So a lot of other municipalities have a partnership with Enterprise that we've recommended to Chief, and we're looking into with them, where basically we would be renting a vehicle for those guys, and they would be able to turn that vehicle over as frequently as needed, and change the type of vehicle too, because the type of vehicle you would use maybe here in New Smyrna Beach isn't something you would be using in more the rural areas or something like that. The 22% from general fund for fire would be that one ambulance that I mentioned. The build time, like I said before, is such that even if we had a PO issued today, we wouldn't have that in operation until 2026. And that's the general fund part. For golf, I've already talked about their fleet needs. Here's a little bit more of a detailed breakdown. The 2 things to point out, I guess, first of all, is the double-digit number in the column marked age of asset for small and specialized assets like this. It really scares me, gives me a lot of anxiety. And then the second thing to point out is that the truck at the bottom, it's not a one-for-one replacement. Right now, the course, they have a pickup truck and they had an SUV. The most useful thing for them would be a dump truck. So what we'd like to do is we'd like to take 2 assets and make it one. Get a dump truck for them that they can actually haul their own sand and their own debris and move materials throughout the course, pull anything that needs to be pulled, stuff like that. But that is a kind of a 2-for-1 swap. I just didn't note it on the slide, so I want to make sure I mentioned it. Stormwater. So this was an interesting one for me this year because I started to hear my favorite words when I was investigating stormwater, which was we don't really need that piece of equipment anymore. It always makes my ears perk up. So when I dug down a little bit more is that I learned when the city invests in infrastructure and projects kind of like the pump and the generator at Esther Street, we don't have as much of a need for Band-Aid fixes like a bunch of pumps that we can pull out and use in the neighborhoods. So I'm starting to see kind of the results of work that was done prior to me, where we're able to say, we don't necessarily need this many pumps. We can kind of keep we can start to reduce, get a different type of pump, or invest in other technology, which is the photo in the top right. It's kind of a weird looking thing, but it's kind of a scaled down version of what the Utilities Commission uses in their big truck. It's called a pipe crawler. And basically it is the pipes that run under our streets, we have no way of inspecting them currently ourselves. We can ask the Utilities Commission in special instances, but this type of technology would give us the ability to inspect our own pipes. Imagine if I could inspect a pipe prior to resurfacing a street, then I might be able to plan out, hey, I'm gonna have the street torn up, this pipe's in bad shape, I should replace the pipe while the street's torn up and line those types of things up. I don't really have that capability right now because we don't have anything like this that would, and this isn't an investment in a full truck or anything like the Utilities Commission has. This is basically like a toolbox unit that would go in the back of a truck and we could move it around. Oh, we're also recommending replacing the 13-year-old dump truck and an 8-year-old vac truck. So that dump truck is the only one of that size that the city owns. Pretty critical piece of equipment. It's the one that creates the big sandbag piles when we're doing the do-it-yourself sandbagging for the citizens. It's really, really vital piece of equipment for us. And the vac truck, those are the trucks that are used to. They're basically like a shop vac on a dump truck's frame, the best way to describe it, is you could just, yeah, you can vacuum out storm drains and things like that, but so many moving parts, they are easy to destroy, and they are very important for our stormwater infrastructure. Also, good timing on these two because I believe, if we act quickly, we can get ahead of the 2027 EPA regulations, save maybe 20% on each one of those trucks. Finally, the airport has 2 trucks that have aged out and hit the maintenance and repair mark. I have put this in as an earmark for them. I have to dig down a little bit more to make sure that this is the type of asset that they need to do. Basically, they're using quarter tons right now. I want to make sure that that's the right type of asset for them. The police department is requesting 4 new positions, from what I understand. So this was earmarked for impact fees for the police. The fleet has a 2-post lift. It's a picture on the right. It's used in the shop. It's basically what you drive a vehicle on, put those yellow parts onto the frame and lift it up into the air to work on it. 25-year-old lift needs to be replaced. And like I'd mentioned during the fire slide, the additional medical unit on fire impact fees, I've kind of earmarked it over here under other funds. So last year, Commission approved creating a fleet replacement fund to set aside money for future replacements. Quick update on that. We're working with our legal department to establish how to create and govern the fund. Maybe it's through a resolution or a commission-approved standard operating procedure. We are working on that. We've gotten copies of the documents that govern how Manatee County and how Hillsborough County manage theirs. They're on the other side of the state, but they are perennial top 100 fleets, and Hillsborough County is top 10, and Manatee's at least top 20 every year, this year included. So reached out to them. They've been doing it for a long time. They have great documentation. We've asked them for that to see how we can kind of mimic what they're doing and how it would apply for us. We're obviously smaller than a county, but best practices over there. You know, instead of us just making it up from scratch, we can kind of mimic a lot of what they've done. And this shows kind of by department what, if everything that I've just walked you through was approved, this would be the estimated capital contribution to that replacement fund for year 1 of fiscal year 25, broken out by department, if that makes sense. And with that, I think we're open to questions or.
Well, if you're done, and then we'll have lead off for the city manager.
No, I just want to clarify one thing. When I mentioned about the generator for the fire station that we did not apply, I was referring to the state's grant that we applied for the Babe James, the city gym, and the Live Oak. However, we will be seeking a hazard mitigation grant from FEMA on replacing the one for the fire station. So I just want to make sure that I want to clarify that. Just to kind of give you an overview of what you just heard, we're trying to digitize and be proactive in terms of the fleet, the stormwater, and so forth. Keep in mind that the only request that was from the previous budgets was the 2.7 million from last year that we kind of delayed it. And that was for the streets lights for the South Atlantic and Canal Streets. So that's the only request out of their whole entire wish list that only was coming from last year's budget. Their total is over $6 million. So just want to keep that in perspective. However, you know, we keep talking about building demolition by neglection. So every time we try to do a program where we have those building on a maintenance schedule, the budget is a constraint for us. So just want to make sure that you keep that in mind. Looking at facilities, looking at the fleets, that's important for us to have them on a schedule. We've been trying to do that for a long time, and it's always been the budget would be in the way. So,
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. And so just an update on our timing. We're running slightly ahead, so we're supposed to be done with this by 10:15, and so it should leave us ample time to do questions. So comments and questions, we'll start with Commissioner McGurk.
Thank you for the presentation. A lot of information. First, I'd like to, I want to talk about the playground. Tell me about, I thought we redid the 27th Avenue park
Yes.
not too long ago.
27th Avenue was replaced. It was part of an ECHO grant. The material that's being used there, it's corroding on a consistent basis.
Is
So
it metal?
Yeah.
So, you know, this is one of these conversations that we seem, I mean, we know that metal rusts, and I can go all the way back to the Flagler, the Flagler Boardwalk. I mean, you weren't here, I get it. It's metal, that it's always been a mess.
Right.
So why, so I can tell you this, nobody likes metal, no matter where it is. I can tell you that kids don't like metal playgrounds, these little generic metal things that we do. We always think that this is the next latest and greatest thing. So that's why I'm gonna use this moment to say, we need to stop putting metal anywhere in the city because nobody likes it. We pat ourselves in the back and say, gosh, we got this brand new little park for these little, this little, play set. The kids can't stand it. They're boring. They're ugly. The metal never does good in New Smyrna, especially on the water. So I have some experience with recycled plastics. All my picnic tables are recycled plastics that I got 15 years ago. Overall, they hold up good. They do get hot, but everything gets hot except wood. What I found is that as long as you have good fasteners, stainless steel fasteners, which is hard to find because you can be told you're getting the highest quality stainless steel, and in a year and a half it's rusting. So it's easy to change the hardware out if you need to. So I like the recycled plastic. I don't ever want to do metal in the city again, anything related to parks or swing sets or anything like that. We need to get away from that.
Especially on beachside.
And then my question is wood. We get away from wood, but I'm going to tell you that the very best play set we ever had was that wood monstrosity thing that we had in Riverside Park, Manatee Park. I'm not sure why we got away from wood, but clearly everything we've done since then, we know is not good. That thing had been there for decades.
Right.
Multiple generations played on the same exact thing. And, we needed to get rid of it, and we put this metal there. So maybe more of a discussion for a later day, but I think whatever we do, we don't put, and I actually like the idea of going back to hiring someone, even some local contractors if we need to build a wood structure. They're just better, they're more fun. I'm not sure these like precast little things really are much fun. They might look pretty from the parent's perspective, but the kids playing it for 5 minutes and they're bored. They go once or twice to the park, they don't want to go back.
Right.
So I just want to take that into consideration maybe for some sort of internal debate. Adding staff through 2030. So call me crazy or in the minority, but I think that this incredible economy we've had is going to come down and kick us in the butt sooner or later. So I've seen the school board during the boom years of 03, 04, 05, 06 talk about all the schools that needed to be rebuilt, the tremendous problems, and then the financial collapse hit, and all of a sudden there are new projections where we don't need to build any more schools. And that we have this problem now. And what we did as a budget was, what means governments do is they just slash the budget and you lose a lot of good people. So I'm preaching to the choir, but I want to remind you that this thing stops and is going to reset at some point. And I think it'll happen before 2030.
Well, that's part of the reason why we don't want to, we're not asking for all of it now. We want to be able to stair step it.
So what I want you to do is phase in the specific departments or the specific slots of people that you think we will need to maintain. I don't want to have to fire people, then try to rehire people.
Right.
I want you to phase that so it has longevity in it, so when the economy does improve, that you're not stuck with now you need to go out and find people we need, but then we can't find. Innovation, the Innovation Development Project, just a question. So we talk about all the infrastructure, we'll need to deal with it, with their parks and their roads and all that stuff. But why aren't we making the developments do all that themselves? Why is there seem to be so much of a pickup of costs, long-term maintenance costs on the city? Where is that sweet spot of what the city does and then what the development needs to? I mean, I make the HOAs maintain their own parks. Just a general question.
Yeah, typically, when you have like, for example, take a subdivision, for example, the infrastructure is put in by the developer, and then you'll have a 1-year maintenance bond on the maintenance. Some of it is maintained by the association, and some of it is maintained by the city. The one in the public right-of-way, it actually now it's the city's responsibility. Most of the stuff he talks about is not in the new subdivision or the new development. Most of the stuff he's referring to, it's development that it's happened 50, 60 years ago that at that time did not have any stormwater requirements, for example. So the sections we're looking at in Corbin Park, the sections we looked at in Islesboro, they didn't even have sewer at some point. So what happened is they went out with the loader, they cleared the right-of-way, and they created lots to build on with no infrastructure whatsoever.
Yeah.
So that's what he's referring to. A lot of the new subdivisions, they already have those requirements included in the development plan that they have to, whether if it's a private, whether it's, most of them, they maintain their own retention areas. We don't maintain them.
Thank you. I understand the history of where we're at with those, and was kind of my point in saying, I want those new developments to basically take over and maintain all of those systems as much as we can make them. I understand you have some right-of-way issues, but maybe we become the leader in new development and what we require as much as we can under state law. And maybe we do, but I just wanted to, because it was the reference to the innovation development and needing to staff, I just wanted to make sure that we're doing all we can to make sure that new developments are self-maintained as much as possible. That was all I was saying. And the interceptor, you made a statement, make it obvious, and we don't want undercover police cars looking like police cars that just don't have the markings on them. I mean, obviously. So I wasn't sure I was following that, except you have a deal with Enterprise to be able to rotate cars out. That's fine, that's great. I just not sure what I was, it looked like you were talking about, 2 cars that looked like the marked police car, and you wanted those for the undercover narcotics units.
No, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to confuse you. Those are examples of some of the admin and criminal investigations division cars that are up for replacement this year.
Okay, and that was probably I probably missed that. That's, I just want to clarify. Okay, thanks, Mayor.
You bet. Thank you. Commissioner Perrine.
Yes, thank you. I have like 10 questions, so I'll try to go quickly. First of all, I thank you for including KPIs, benchmarking, and giving us results of that. That's between this year and last year. Good job. I want to talk about the sidewalks a little bit. You gave us some KPI measurements on the streets, and I like how you showed a % on where we are with that. On the sidewalks, I get a lot of complaints here, and I understand some things you subcontract out and some things you do within internally. Do you measure trip and falls from that? Is that one of our KPI measurements against the sidewalk repairs that we have, especially in the old districts?
Yeah, so what we have, the same company who did the PCIs for the resurfacing, they have done a full PCI on every single sidewalk in the city. We don't have that data yet, It should be coming within the next probably month is what we're anticipating. A couple weeks ago, they had essentially looked like a robot golf cart that ran all of our sidewalks to do the same kind of study. And so we're going to get all those numbers, and then we'll be able to cross-reference
Thank you.
and get those official KPIs
And,
for you.
and I assume you're going to share that with
Yes.
us. That'd be great. I would
Yes.
love to see that. Let's look at go to the slide that you're having the benchmarks with the city that's at 40,000 population.
Yes.
I like how you boxed this in at 2.6 increase in population, and I like Commissioner McGurk's about the phase-in on the employees. My question is this city, Beach Town, is it similar? What city is it? And what did that we have that they don't, that maybe we don't need? You have the grayed out on what they have we don't have, but I want to see, do we have something in there we don't need?
So we have, it's Ormond Beach.
Ormond? Okay.
Yes, ma'am. And actually, we have something additional that they don't. So all their parks are outsourced to a company. So we actually have our entire parks department, which they do not. Essentially, they only have, I think, 2 or 3 employees in their parks department because they outsource all their parks maintenance.
I like your thought process with this, but I know it's not always comparing apples to oranges because every department is different, just like what you said with the Parks Department. So I understand it's hard to do this, but I'm grateful that you're attempting it because I think it's important that we see how we compare. Both ways, though, it needs to go not only what are we missing, but what do we have too much.
Right.
And I would like to see more of that,
Sure.
of course. One of the things that I saw when I was visiting your area was all the equipment that wasn't under shelter and all the rest because of where we are. One of your goals was to get more of that equipment under cover. We talked about the roof and that, but where are you with getting that equipment under cover? And then also, this is a two-phase question, the life cycle of scrapping those and retiring those assets and getting them off the book. You were going to develop an app to get those moved quicker out of our fleet, get a sell price better quicker. How are you with that? I didn't see that side of this.
So we are moving along with that one pretty nicely. We have a couple of different options that our fleet department has. What's the other company? The J.J. Kane. We were approved to use J.J. Kane, so they actually come in. They actually pull the vehicle immediately and take it over to their site, so it's not sitting on our site since we're kind of cramped for room already. What we are working towards is we start getting approval through the budget for this. All these replacements are going to be, we're going to be asking for all the replacements to be surplused immediately. So we don't have to come back to you all with a list of 27 vehicles or equipment to be surplus, so we can start surplusing any of the replacements right away. In terms of your first question, we are actually looking to work with a company that is going to, a consultant that's going to look at our entire maintenance ops facility and see what's working, what's not working, and really start developing a plan for a future home for maintenance ops overall.
I was pretty shocked when I saw how much old crap we had out there, to be honest, and put it bluntly. So, yeah, I would like to see where you are with that and how we go and what kind of revenues we get from your new energy from establishing this that we don't have. One of the things mentioned by Commissioner McGurk was on my list. It irks me to see that we spent taxpayer money 5 years ago for a car that has the undercoating already corroded for our parking vehicle. And it irks me that we've spent this kind of money on 27th Street and we're replacing it already. I've also seen some of the piers that didn't have the stainless steel that was proper and it's already rusted and corroded out. This is really, really important. That we're not here to fund all of this over and over and over. So to get a good grasp of this firsthand is so important. So please keep us updated on that. When I had a problem in briefing when I was told this car was only 5 years old and it was a problem. If that's the case, all the cars would have a problem. I'm not buying that. It's just that one parking task force car. So do we need to undercoat these cars? You know, back in, not long ago, it was $700 to do a Rhino undercoating, and now it's thousands, he said. That's just the nature of how horrible costs have gone up. So with that, we need to know, don't buy that car from that person again. You know, if it's a defect, go back on them or whatever. Same way with the 111 AC units. You know, you guys know that. We don't need to tell you how to do your jobs. You do it well. But it's just seeing those numbers to us, sometimes they don't make sense. It's kind of like common sense to me. It's like, why is that already rusting out? Why is this playground equipment? I don't care if it's wood, plastic, or whatever. We should be replacing it in 5 years when I see playground equipment out there that's older than me. The homeless camp situation, the cleanup, that bothers me because, you know, I'm near and dear in this. And I saw one that you cleaned up, it's already back there again. And this may be directed to the chief and to you, but these private individuals that are allowing this, we need to have code enforcement on top of them, finding them if they don't keep their lots cleaned up through code enforcement. I don't know how much of that 60,000 is public. I'm assuming it's all public. But we have this issue on private too, and we need to put some funding into code enforcement to make sure that those homeless camps are cleaned up and they're directed to our shelter, because that's why we're spending the $70,000 a year on the shelter, so that we don't have that. I know it's not going to be 100%, but it's like the carrot and stick effect. We've got to do something with that. The replacement fund, if you could go there, I need some clarification on that. So last budget season, we suggested that you start a fleet maintenance replacement schedule with that. And I guess I'm confused with the timeline of this. How many years is it going to take us to where that fund kicks in and be totally self-sufficient? Like, I know we're looking at this $708,000. How much did we contribute to that in last year and this year, and when will this fund be self-sufficient?
So last year, 700,000, and somebody throw something at me if I'm speaking incorrectly, but 750, even better. 750 was earmarked for this fund, which would have been the year one, which would have been the year one fund for fiscal year 24's purchases. So to answer your question, there's a couple dynamics at play. Fully self-funding versus when will we first see the rewards from it. So some of the assets that we purchased this past year have about a 3 to 5 year life cycle on them, which means that in 2027 would be the first year that those would start come up for replacement, and the funds would be there for them. So that would be the first year that we would see rewards from it. Fully in action and self-funding would begin, that's rough, it'd probably be a decade before this thing is fully autonomous and we don't have to have this kind of a...
So 10 years,
Yeah.
probably way past me. So question with that fleet, the leased vehicle, I'm all on board with having leased vehicles for our detectives because that only makes sense. We don't want that same car out there every year. But with admin needing inceptors, what was your reason for that? They're more expensive.
No, I'm sorry, I don't have the admins purchasing interceptors.
Okay.
I have us replacing the admin vehicles with admin vehicles.
Okay, thank you. Because I was confused on that. I'm like, they don't really
I'm
need
sorry about
that.
that.
Could be a less expensive car.
I was trying to emphasize that I needed to switch to admin vehicles to interceptors. I thought that would be the holdup, but I ended up making a lot more. Sorry about that.
So I'm getting there. I'm on number 7. The fuel project that you and I discussed when we were out there. Right now, we're losing money, at certain times making money, but lately, since the last 4 years of this price of fuel, I don't know how we are, because what we're being charged versus what we're charging out the other departments, I know that is hard to maintain. I wanted to see if you were able to do anything with that project with the vendors, and it's same with the airport. I don't know that you have a similar way, but I'm going to be asking Arvin the same thing. So when we get charged from our vendors for the fuel, they charge us an average amount, and I know this is finance too, but what we're billing back for the departments, how are you with that? Do you have that on a new application?
Yeah, to answer your question, so there are a lot of components that go into a fuel operation. And the biggest problem that we have right now is the oversight of our fueling operations, meaning that there are a couple of technologies that we don't have in place that most other municipalities or private enterprises do. We have that planned. We've gone out and investigated all of them, but that kind of runs along the lines of the analyst and GIS position, that specialist. I don't want to begin implementing technologies that our current staffing levels and our current capabilities, we might run into problems. They all need to speak to each other. They all need to work fluidly together, but there is a lot of middleware and connecting that needs to be done prior to it working well. So I have not done any of those. I haven't done any of those upgrades. I haven't put our tank monitors in or upgraded our fuel dispensing. All of that technology will give us a much better picture and a much cleaner way to map out, how much we should be charging every month, be more flexible in our price points, and things like that.
So I try to look at our city like I run a business, and one of the things I've found where vendors' highest theft is in this area, and it can be hundreds of thousands of dollars, and that's why I'm questioning this on the cheating side of things, and especially with the airport and with your tank too. We just get cheated so much by vendors in this industry, and that's why I'm mentioning that again, just to put an ear in that. A lot of theft loss I've seen is from that area.
Thank you.
I'm having a hard time with the golf course with this, because I know a few years ago you took that out of enterprise so we could see, we were able to see the expenses and the revenues, and then you moved it to general fund, and now we have all these capital improvement projects we need, where some of this equipment's 18 years old. And with that, we're going to have to allocate a lot of money here. When it almost seemed like golf course didn't make money, and then it did make money during COVID, and I'm still unsure where we are right now with the golf course, because we just changed the structure. We go a long time without increasing the fees, and we have this old dilapidated equipment. I like seeing things just like our AOB site, our parking. We make money from that area and the parking. It goes back into that area like we're doing the AOB. I'm having a hard time understanding why it's taken so long to get money back in the golf course when we were making money on the golf course, and why are they, where'd that money go from the general fund when the golf course was making so much money? It's what I was heard during COVID years. So here we are now. It's been neglected. And now, all of a sudden, this year, we need all these things.
Now, if you recall with the golf course, when it was moved from an enterprise to the general fund, that was recommended by the auditors at the time. They were almost breaking even or below. So that's why, because they kept going back to general fund. However, since we have revised and adopted the new fees, I think we have increased the revenue there. But still, I don't think sometimes we have those big capital equipment or capital projects that we have to do. I don't think they could cover. It's almost like having a park. They consider that as it's part of the recreation that the city provides. Some people, they say, well, not everybody uses the golf course. But that's how they looked at it at the time, and that's what the commission decided before you joined the commission, is to include that in the general fund. I'm not sure if you have any information or any numbers at this point. I know Rob has provided some numbers I'm sure that you're going to go probably in his presentation, Vice Mayor with leisure services, golf courses under leisure services. So he'll provide some numbers for you so you could see more of the picture.
Okay, and it's the same way with the city marina too. We wait too long, we're not proactive, and now all of a sudden this year, oh, we got to focus on the golf course. So somehow we've got to treat this to where we have some of the revenues, a percent going back to their capital improvement budgets from each enterprise, if possible, but it may not be since you moved it to general fund. But to me, that should be an automatic. Just like we're handling this fleet fund, they're making good money from that. The demolition by neglect with these city buildings, again, we need the historic preservation to have a fund to protect the buildings if they want to save these buildings. We put all of these things off, and we try to prioritize to when it's to the point of here, there's damage now, it's too late to prioritize. And I don't want to do that. I want this commission board to be proactive and try to think creatively how to stay on top of these things before they happen. So that's only my comments, but thank you. Huge improvement. I like what I'm seeing, and I am looking forward to seeing all the information you provide us in the near future.
Thank you, ma'am. It is 10:17. We're 2 minutes over and 3 of us to go. My proposal is that we eat some of the break time and some of the lunch time up, and without objection, we'll do that unless somebody has a better idea. Very good. Commissioner Hartman.
One question and one comment. The first question is, what's a quarter-ton pickup truck?
I messed up. Yeah, thank you for catching that. I messed up. So we half ton. Yeah.
It's what?
So, sorry, quarter ton meaning not an F-150. We're looking at trying to replace them with smaller vehicles.
Oh, like a Ranger or something like that?
Yes,
Okay.
and that was just our internal. I didn't mean to bring that in front of you guys. That was our internal. way
Okay,
of
I've just never heard of a
separating.
quarter-ton
Sorry
pickup
about
truck. The other thing is with the dump truck. Is it possible to reuse the bed on the dump truck? Is the bed in good enough shape that you could just purchase a chassis and replace that? Or, I mean, have you looked at that?
Yes,
Just look at that.
The
Okay.
it's an ox body. I have looked at it. It's something we're kicking around. What makes me nervous about that, to Commissioner McGurk's point, everything rusts. It's starting to show signs.
Okay.
I worry that if I did that swap, I'd have to be back in front of you guys before the end of that truck and asking for, hey, I need to replace a body on a truck I'm worried about getting those two off cycle
Okay.
together.
Yeah,
I
just,
think I can get a little bit more by selling them both same time, same age. I can.
yeah, it's hard to tell from a picture, you know,
Yeah.
so appreciate it. That's
It's
all I
starting
have.
to show signs, yeah, and it being the only one of that size.
Okay, thanks, thank you for the presentation.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Martin.
A couple of things. I'm a little nervous about saying we want to reduce the stormwater pumps. I've got people with PTSD and no stormwater system. And I've been sort of saying, well, you know, relax a little bit. We've got pumps for staging when big storms are coming. I want to know if I'm telling them the truth.
Yeah.
Well, keep in mind too, that those pumps that we're looking to replace, those aren't the big pumps that we're bringing and setting everything up. Those are kind of the handhelds that we can put in someone's front yard. You know, those aren't the big ones that we replaced last year that are true
Stuff that we can make
storm
up.
pumps.
Okay, I just want to
Yeah.
make sure, like, you know, there's a couple of spots that really only affect one or two houses.
Right.
And I want to make sure that we have equipment.
We will have plenty of pumps for those
Thank
houses.
you. And I don't know whether this is something that's publicized or not, but the list of hot spots that we're prepared to stage for.
We have those.
Thank you. South Atlantic Lights, I get so many complaints about light outages. Now that we are all shuttling them to Rosalie, I'm guessing she's giving you a list also. But this is just dangerous. There are parts of Atlantic Avenue North and South that are just so dark that trip and falls because we don't have sidewalks on most of the area. So you have dark streets, no sidewalks. It's really dangerous. So whatever we need to do to replace the lights with marine grade equipment and would be appreciated. I've wondered what's happened to curbs as I struggle with the area of my little, right-of-way next to the road, I think curbs are nice. You can make things neat with curbs, and we have many curbs throughout New Smyrna Beach, just not that many beachside on our little streets. So was there a decision at some point to no longer put in curbs?
If you look at a lot of the areas that we have developed new, we actually put curbs. So if you look at South Atlantic, we did a streetscape in the early 2000s.
I'm very jealous for those areas.
Yeah. So, but then the other ones, I mean, if you recall, take for example the Central Beach area, where you don't have paved streets. So how are you going to have curbs on unpaved roads? So that's number one. Number two, every street that we worked on in terms of, like, for example, paving the street. So if it was unpaved, they went through the petition process, through the assessment. You'll either see a curb or a Miami curb, which is, look like a V. It's look like a little gutter on the side of the road. That's called Miami gutter. So when you have that, it's either that or the high 6-inch curb that you got. So it's not like the beach side doesn't have it for a reason. I think at the time, don't think it was paved roads, number one. And when they paved them, they just didn't have any curbs on it. But any new roads that we do put a curb if it's possible.
I'm just thinking that as we move forward, we may want to think about that because it makes such a difference in the appearance.
It does.
I'd also like to see, as I wander around Central Beach, so many people are trying to walk to Flagler, which takes us back to the streetlights, which takes us also back to sidewalks. It really worries me, the number of people I see in the streets. So sidewalks are a lot cheaper than other ways of handling it. So I'd like to see start to prepare for sidewalks.
I hope they show up when we have public meetings for sidewalks.
I'm sorry?
I hope they show up.
For
Because
meetings
if you
with
recall, when we
sidewalks.
had the sidewalk
Yeah.
on Pine Street,
No,
we
I
have so many
understand.
people don't want
And-
it.
Yes, but the loud voices were there saying they didn't want it. There were an awful lot of people that did want it, but didn't make themselves as loudly heard. Schedule for maintenance, you've said that you have it, and wondering both on all of this equipment, the Baltimore lead times, as I'm calling it. We know that we've lost a major port. And what impact is that having on your projections for delivery?
We've actually started asking fleet
Yeah.
vendors, where's your stock coming from? What we found is actually a lot of them are coming in through Tampa Bay or through Jacksonville, Savannah, I think it is, the one in Georgia. And so, ironically enough, I expected a lot more response, but
Okay.
haven't come across a lot of that.
Thank you.
Well done, guys. Especially hats off for the life cycle planning concepts, which seems so basic, and I can't account for why we haven't done that previously, but whatever speed you can get to get us there is great. Can I ask a detailed question on air conditioning and docks? David, do you plan to hire our own air conditioning guys and not contract out so that becomes a specialty in-house with 100 and some air conditioners?
We've definitely looked into that, and we're going to be working with HR on potentially whether that's something a route that we want to go. Otherwise, we will be going into a more of a contract with an outside vendor to kind of help us along with that.
And I could speak to that, Mayor. In the past, we have tried to hire a specialized personnel for electric and AC. So what we've done is we've done an analysis to see how much did we pay throughout the whole year. Would it cover to hire a personnel for that? And at that time, and this is not, I don't think they have done it recently, but at that time it wasn't justified for us to hire a new person. But maybe with extra facilities that we have and a lot of ACs, maybe it would do. But we have done in the past, looked at it. So.
Yeah, okay. I don't propose to know. I don't know all I need to know about AC. I have 40 air conditioning units on the building I own downtown Daytona Beach, and I can keep a guy full-time ready for that. And I pay a fortune because I contract it out because I can't find an AC guy. Same with docks. I mean, is there a periodicity you have for Commissioner Perrine's point about the docks and piers? I mean, they seem to always, there's a cycle of fading away for them and a cycle of tightening. I don't know. It doesn't seem to be terribly high-skilled work, but maybe you could have somebody that would do that full-time. I'm just throwing it out. Maybe you've already thought of it. Commissioner Martin brought up lights, and it's a good one. Was the priority for a while was canal and lights? Did we get that cooking?
Oh, Canal, I believe Canal is all cleared up, but we have so many lights out on Flagler, which I know David has already under control.
I meant Flagler. Is Flagler all set or not?
Flagler, so we are working with a consultant. We actually just received their photometrics and the plan for Flagler, but it's already budgeted, and we're moving along with that process
I didn't
this year.
see it in there, but it's coming, right?
Yes.
I saw, what, third
We had
and...
funds committed from last year.
Yeah.
Is there a play for FEMA on what bad things happen during hurricanes to weather away our lights? I know you can't get replacements from general grants, but it just seems to me that there might be a play that says, hey, we're in a storm area. Those things are metal. They get beat up by tremendously in a storm. Might be a play. They're god awful expensive, and boy, wouldn't it be nice if we could get some federal money for that?
I doubt it, but we'll look. Typically, they don't, if you have a maintenance item or something like this, I don't think there's any grants available, but we'll keep looking.
My understanding is that the components used in the past were not marine grade.
Got it. Yeah.
And you can't put marine grade on each side and expect it to last any length of time. Right, every wire that was covered has corroded away.
Fall apart.
Did we get the bases? Are we okay on the bases?
We're working on that right now. Yeah.
Did you decide to buy carbon fiber or something like that? Did I hear that?
Yeah, so we're working with, shout out to the UC and Efren and Caleb over there. They hooked us up with their consultant that they use for all their street lights. So we are working with, since it's going on the UC's power grid as well, we're working right alongside with the UC to get these upgrades done.
Appreciate that. And anyway, so hats off to you. I like the life cycle approach. I think it's good. None of us like sawtooth budgets up here, and it's not dependable. The crowd hates it, and it's hard to do. So good on you, both you and Kevin. Thank you. I so appreciate you benchmarking other towns for how they're doing their fleet vehicles. I think that's a great technique, and you may have found some that you liked a lot. We previously brought up a point about a pool concept versus individual departments get X number of cars, or in the extreme, everybody gets a car. Is there just remind me, is there a break-even point or X number of vehicles or what have you before that starts making sense, or what have you come to? I mean, I'm just pushing it because I've seen it in so many other places, and allow me to drone on. Sometimes it's not the age and it's not the number of miles, it's another thing that makes the vehicle age out. I'll give you an example. Air stair ramps on airport property, they get 18 miles a year, and they get used a gazillion times, and they're 25 years old, 30 years old. They're just fine, but you got to paint them, and you got to do all that other stuff. It really doesn't matter how old they are. The car, the engine fires up, it goes 18 miles a year, and does it in, half-mile increments, and it's great. It looks like crap if you don't paint it, but it lasts a long time. So I imagine, depending on whether you're a police department and you're on the move all the time, or the fire department, I liked your ambulance drawing there. Maybe that's a mileage thing, but sometimes it's not age, sometimes it's not mileage, sometimes it's something else. And I just wondered where you are with that. And on top of that, what do you think about pool?
So to answer the pool vehicle question, there are a couple metrics that we can look at, kind of like general rules of thumb, where you can have there, and I can't remember the number off the top of my head, so I would butcher it if I tried, but let's say if it's not driven more than X number of miles per month, it needs to be assessed to become a pool vehicle, unless it is deemed essential to a position, in which, kind of like the air ramp stairs, that would be an essential piece of equipment. So we are looking into that. The way we're addressing that right now is as everything comes up for replacement, we are assessing, if you would change to that slide, please. We're assessing it for, is it the right piece of equipment? Is it getting used? We're also, we started to watch the assets that we have telematics applied to. You bring up a good question, or a good point in that there are other things that age them, not just miles and years. We're starting to look at calculations for idle time for, I think it's every, I'll mess it up, maybe every hour is essential, every hour at idle is about 30 miles driven, something along those lines. So we're looking at that and saying, okay, how does that equate out? What would that put you at a maintenance repair mark maybe quicker than others? And as you've seen over the past year, wear and tear of, well, the VACCON, for instance, would be a good example. That's a big moving piece of equipment that's getting sludge, water, whatever they pull up. It's getting beaten up quite a bit. That's going to speed up its life cycle. Or beachside use, we've seen the frame issues. So we do have a lot of variables that really impact our fleet that maybe a lot of other municipalities don't deal with. So to answer your question, yes, we are looking into pool. I don't have a set answer on that yet because we haven't identified one that would be a great example of, hey, this would be a good pool vehicle. But we're also working with HR on our policies and procedures because there may be instances where we're providing a vehicle that we don't need to, as long as we cover that in our policies and procedures for personal vehicle use. So if we're providing an alternative, which a lot of municipalities do, I don't necessarily have to provide a vehicle for every employee in the city, as long as I've covered how they would travel using their own personal vehicle.
Yeah, really good. Thanks. I think about Commissioner Hartman's comment about the dump truck. I would imagine the dump truck doesn't get lots of mileage, but it's a heavy-duty deal, and so do you paint anything? Have you painted, any vehicles you've never painted, repainted?
We've done body work, but never repainting just for cosmetics.
Just surprises me in our beach environment, given that Commissioner Perrine's comment about, hey, on close inspection, got a bunch of us old rusty stuff, and if on a piece of equipment that's $250,000, whatever the dump truck is, that would be, large hydraulic thing, got to carry a lot of stuff, not going very far, probably last a long, long time if we took care of it differently.
So one of the things that we are doing to address that point, and I wanted to make sure I covered this because you brought up a great point. The vehicle on the other side of the picture, so the one on the left is an F-250, the one on the right is a 5500, just the chassis. Something that we're trying this year, and I needed to address it with you guys because we're not quite sure how to bring it back to you when we're coming for these replacements, but we're trying to see if purchasing a different type of equipment would remove the need for a car. So that truck's actually going to be outfitted with what's called a Stellar hook lift. And a Stellar hook lift is essentially like, you would see the roll-off, the big trucks that carry like the roll-off dumpsters. They've got something that pulls the dumpster up onto the back of the truck. This would be able to pull up any kind of truck bed you wanted. So that chassis, if I was able to buy 3 beds, I may be able to do the job of 3 trucks. So there may come a time where I'm coming back to you and saying, I don't want to buy this truck. Well, I came to you and asked for a truck. Now I need to buy a bed. I don't want you to really think I've lost my mind. What we're trying to do is find pieces of equipment that we can swap out the bed instead of having the issue of the bed being attached to the truck. So it's a unique case. And to Commissioner Perrine's point, when we're coming back to you this fall, we're going to be asking for permission to surplus the unit once it's replaced. Right now, what we have to do is we have to come back to you with a list every time. So we kind of get this bottleneck where we're holding vehicles, getting together a list big enough to bring back to you, getting permission to then surplus them. We're going to try and knock that out when we come back this fall with the request to say, we're going to be asking for permission to purchase this piece of equipment and at the same time surplus this piece of equipment once it comes in.
Smart move, very good. I noticed on your FTE, your number of people, most of those ads are management. Who's managing those people today?
So right now that falls to Kevin and I and the supervisors that are in place there.
Got it. So there's nobody between you and the frontline supervisor?
Correct.
Gotcha. All right. Appreciate you. You've been conserving there. And the last was I would recommend a line chart for the year-to-date budget versus the adopted budget comparison. Those two pie charts, superimposing them side by side, is tough for me, maybe tough for others. Maybe a line chart for each group there, so we could see the variance between each rather than going back and forth. That's a bar graph, I like that, but I'm thinking of a line chart might be helpful. Just a suggestion. That's all I got. Thank you so much. Any follow-up by you guys or the city manager?
No, but I just want to remind the commission that it's over 6 million requests for this just one department. And then at the end after all the presentations, we will be talking about, I have asked for a projection based on a 7% increase in terms of the property taxes. Just to kind of show you what numbers do we have and what we're dealing with. So just kind of keep that in mind. I mean, it's you're going to see a lot of requests, but I have not met with the department to talk about each individual request in detail. So,
Sir, ma'am.
Do we have any comprehensive listing of grants we apply for versus grants we receive?
we should.
Okay.
We provided that.
Well, it's a bit piecemeal when we say, yes, we want to allocate X number of dollars, but we're applying for a grant, and then we come back later, and I don't know whether you got the grant or not.
Well,
So how does that financial
Typically, when we get the
allocation-
grant, we bring it to the commission to approve the
I
grant. So
understand,
you
but
will get
it's,
that.
when I say a comprehensive listing, it still gets, we sometimes say, yes, go ahead because you're applying for a grant, but it's really hard to keep that straight.
We'll get you a grand list of all the grants.
Hey,
and equities.
grants applied for, grants received, I think we'd all like that.
We will do. Thank you.
So with your comments there, City Manager and Director Ray's request for such a large amount of money, I think we should suspend with the rest of this and just give it to David and we'll be done.
I second that motion.
I don't think it'll be enough what you have to.
With that, Leisure Services is up to bat. Mr. Salazar, we're ready for your presentation, sir.
Okay. Test. Okay, sounds good. Thank you, Commission, for the opportunity to present this morning regarding our department for fiscal 25. And thank you to Dave and Kevin for including us in that extensive report that they put together for fleet management. That helps me a ton to have the expertise of Kevin and David working on our side as well. Quick recap of what Leisure Services entails and what's under my jurisdiction. The operations of Leisure Services include the Community Center, City Gym, Live Oak Cultural Center, Coronado Civic Center, Department Operations, Special Events, the Skate Park, City Hard Courts, like for pickleball and tennis courts, and et cetera. The Brand Center, Sports Complex, Golf Course, and City Marina. Quick snapshot of some historical numbers. I'm going to go over very briefly in the introduction of each division of the department, the historical financial figures, just give you an idea of where we've been. And this is for Leisure Services, which is part of the general fund. For fiscal 23, the operating budget for Leisure Services remained flat pretty much at $911,000, while our personnel expenses increased. That was due to the 3% COLA that HR and the LIUNA negotiated that went in effect for all city employees. Some goals and objectives that we've been working on for this current fiscal year for leisure services. I'm just going to highlight a couple key ones. As you guys know, we have the Page Park pickleball courts in construction. We received the change order and processed that with Mead and Hunt. They are due for 90% plans in 30 days. Those went to them on Monday, because I know I've been asked a few times by you guys on where that is. So that's a work in progress. We're also in progress of resurfacing the hard courts at Pettis Park and Rocco Park. That project is scheduled to be completed at the beginning of May. And we've also introduced a department programming guide this fiscal year for the first time. The sports complex, some quick historicals. Again, in our operating expenses, we actually decreased the operating budget for fiscal year 24 that we're currently in, while our staffing numbers did increase. And some goals and objectives that we've been working towards at the complex for this current fiscal year. Painting the maintenance building. We actually have painted all the buildings in the facility except the main office with a new blue and white matching scheme. So the aesthetics of the complex are improving. We're currently resurfacing the parking lots throughout the complex. I'm going to be proposing a LED light upgrade for fiscal 25 that's been on the books and under review for a number of years. So I'll have some more details on that later in the presentation. And we're also in the process of discussing some naming rights opportunities with some potential organizations as well. The Brand Center, a quick snapshot of the historicals at the Brand Center. The Brand Center is a sub-fund of the general fund. The revenue generated from the Brand Center has increased over the last 2 years since we've done a recent adjustment in rental fee structure. Additionally, this current fiscal year, year to date through March, in comparison to where we were in fiscal 23, revenues generated at the center are up 25%. The goal we had for the Brandon Center for fiscal 24 was to generate $300,000 of revenue. And we are tracking through March, we're at $165,000. So we're halfway through the year and we're on track to get at or near our goal. So that was my internal goal with staff. These are just the goals like I just touched on. Golf course, year to date with golf course, so the golf course has two budgets. We have an administrative budget and a maintenance budget for the course. Each budget is roughly $1 million to $1.2 million, somewhere in that range. So total budget of the course is right around 2.1 to 2.2. In fiscal 23, we generated $2.1 million of gross revenue. And in fiscal 24, year to date, in comparison to where we were in fiscal 23 through March, we're 13.7% increased. We've increased 13.7% from where we were halfway through the fiscal from last year. This is the second half of the maintenance ops, or the maintenance historicals for the golf course. This past fiscal, we increased, or we reclassified 2 part-time positions into 1 full-time maintenance position, which has helped us greatly. So thank you, Commission, for allowing us to do so. It's helped the operation greatly. And then the City Marina, the final division of leisure services. 43 slips at the marina, 1 occupied by the fireboat, 35 annual lease slips. We've maintained a 100% occupancy in the annual lease slips. this year, which has helped our bottom line. Year to date, through halfway through the fiscal year at the marina, we're 6% above where we were in fiscal '23. Additionally, the commission approved a rate restructuring for the transient slips. There's 7 transient slips that have daily traffic in and out at the marina, and those have remained busy this fiscal. Additionally, we've had some ongoing issues with the pump out. I've been working with our marina manager to alleviate those issues. We have a new quote to replace the cart that would remedy the issue. So that's an ongoing priority project. So high on the radar, just want to ensure that that will be tended to ASAP. Quick slide on the golf course. Kevin outlined the importance of the replacement equipment for the aging current equipment. There's 11 pieces of equipment. I believe 9 of those were over 10 years old. Last year, we asked for 6 pieces of equipment in our initial request to the commission. We were granted 3 pieces of equipment. Additionally, the pump house that feeds the water and the irrigation throughout the course, Kevin illustrated that was a system from 2003, and that the company that installed the system is out of business. That's a critical need at the course. Without proper irrigation, the course will go downhill quickly. If that was to fail further, we'd be in big trouble. So if there's a priority for me at the course, it's that pump house, and then we could make do with whatever equipment options we can work through. Additionally, as Carl has said, we have not gone through and prioritized these items yet. Strictly for leisure services now, we're talking capital projects for leisure. Page Park Pickleball, as I illustrated previously, we're currently trying to finish up the project, which should be, courts I anticipate being completed in probably Q2 of fiscal '25. I'm talking construction-wise. We've had some holdups with our going through some issues with our neighbors, which we have remedied at the Humane Society. We've talked to them. We've talked with the UC, had extensive meetings. Jesse and Chad have been very helpful from our CIP division to get this project aligned. And I know one of the big asks that comes to me frequently from our citizens is lighting for the evening play for pickleball. And currently, this project does not have lighting built into that. So what I'm potentially proposing is a phase 2 of the project. The current $500,000 budget for installation of the courts, what we're going to do is we're going to create a complex and build the courts with the dog park. It's going to be more of a, trying to articulate this correctly. It's more of a complex, including the dog park rather than standalone features. So there'll be a concourse in the middle where the courts will be to the west, dog park will be to the east and the north, and a concourse with restrooms, water fountains, benches, things like that in the middle. And that's the direction we're going. Part of this proposal for the lights would be a potential ECHO grant. Recently, I've been to the county, been through the ECHO grant process with the skate park application. We recently got approved, and the ECHO committee and the county council supports LED lighting tremendously. They had an application before them from the city of Ormond Beach this past cycle, and that flew through with great support. So when we potentially get funding or resolution for any of our lighting projects, which I'll touch on the sports complex project shortly, my proposal is to get the resolution from the commission, and with that, propose to pursue the ECHO grant to get supplemental funding for these projects. An additional project before I get to the lighting is our covered pavilion structure at Detweiler Park. I know recently Detweiler Park has gotten a little scrutiny for some of the banners and the sponsorship initiatives that we have pursued. However, we have been looking at ways to best serve all park users. And in discussions with David and Kevin from Maintenance Ops and John and Michelle, we've come up with a concept that would create more of a family-style pavilion that could be utilized for people who want to play basketball, or the park could be rented to have, your family outing, but it would also provide additional shade for tennis, pickleball, basketball, all user groups utilizing the park. And one thing I'm working on in this project is something similar to a site layout for the park, not for future development with making it strictly pickleball, as I know has been a big concern from citizens, but to make it more user-friendly in general with maximizing the space available. The leisure services, the sports complex LED lights. So this project dates back to when Dave Ray was previously the sports complex manager, before he was the leisure director, before he was the maintenance ops director. And this has been requested and ongoing for probably 5 to 6 years at least. I've worked with 2 companies through the last 6 to 8 months getting proposals and updated quotes and pricing and concepts on what it would cost to upgrade our complex in its entirety to LED lights. One of the companies has proposed a plan that is about $1.6 million for the whole thing. Another has a plan that's about $2.1 million. Obviously, that's a big ask. There's different approaches we can pursue to facilitate an upgrade like that. We could do a phased approach, which I know the commission has been in favor of, and I've talked with some members of the commission about interests of or ideas about that previously. But this is where I think an ECHO grant would be a huge opportunity for us. For a regular ECHO grant, the county commission or county council can award up to $600,000 towards a project. And recently, the city of Ormond Beach, I referenced their application earlier, they had a project that was awarded, I think it was just over $400,000. So there's precedence for ECHO grants to be awarded for similar projects like this, and I think this would certainly be something that they would be greatly interested in having our application. However, we have to have the funding and the buy-in before I can pursue that further. So that would come with approval from you for the project. This is a little more detail about the $1.6 million proposal. The company who I've been working with is NGU, and they're one of the lighting providers. I've also worked with Musco, and I'll illustrate some benefits from both. As you can see, the pricing breakdown of each component of the football fields, the baseball fields, the quad fields, three fields, softball, multipurpose, and ongoing throughout the list. This would also include parking, which I thought was an added benefit. I had looked at an alternative program rather than the city buying the lights outright, but doing more of a lease partnership with FPL, and we had approached the NSB Utilities if there was an option for them to help us out with anything previously after one of the workshops we had last year to see if they could, this was in their realm, and it's really not. This has to be a sports lighting provider. And when I touch on the lease to own portion of the that concept, what that would call for is building in monthly lighting costs into the operating budget, just like a car payment. We would have a light payment annually or monthly to the vendor. However, doing an apples-to-apples comparison over the length of time and the potential life of a LED light system, that was going to come out to like $3 million rather than the 1.5 or 2 million. So not a realistic or effective use of our funding. Some of the benefits of an upgrade at the complex, operational efficiency. Obviously, with LED lights, you're getting a 50% clean energy in comparison to the existing halo lights that we currently have, which are getting harder and harder to replace. And when we have damage from hurricanes or lights fail, we have to get lighting brought in from a third-party vendor that's having a harder time to replace those lights. System reliability, LED lights have a longer life cycle than the halo lights, and then system control. We would have the whole complex, all the lights on a electronic platform that the staff could manage. Currently, we're having some issues with our existing system, and we need to explore a solution, whether that's the whole complex all at one time, or 6 phases, or 2 phases, or whatever that is, but we need to address this. This is the other price point from Musco. Musco is one of the industry leaders it's probably the leader in LED lights throughout the nation. This is a little more expensive, but I also feel that we could get improved pricing if I had the authorization to solicit from the commission to really go out and seek this 100%. This is just a quick breakdown of what a anticipated savings over the life of 25 years, which would be about the life cycle of some of the poles in an LED light system, would be about a $1.4 million savings over the life cycle of the system in relation to a non-LED light system, along with the reduction in emissions and CO2 that the non-LED systems produce. Okay, I've talked a lot about lights. Now, something a little different. Sports complex playground. One of the amenities that we have been wanting to explore is a playground at the sports complex. The sports complex is booked for weekend reservations and tournaments, probably 40 to 45 weekends out of the year. And with those tournaments and events that come into the complex, we have families coming in. And these families have, their youth, one of their kids is playing baseball, or one of the kids is playing softball, but these families have 2 or 3 kids, and the siblings often are running around the park and don't have, much to do besides that. We want to look at putting a playground in just to the northeast of the existing Miracle League playground. We approached the Miracle League, who installed the Phase 1 concept playground a number of years ago with the complex, and there was plans for a Phase 2. However, when we approached them, the organization stated that they did not have the capability to move forward with a potential Phase 2 due to funding. So that's when we decided that let's look at pricing and get our heads wrapped around what this could potentially look like. Additionally, this could be an ECHO grant project if we move forward with something like this. As you guys know, the city can have up to 3 ECHO grants open at one time. We currently have 1 open with the skate park. So a number of proposals on the table. Depending on what we want to move forward with and what we want to pursue, we'll obviously decide which applications we submit. Coronado Civic Center. I've worked with David with maintenance ops and his team over the last few months to put together a plan and outline what a cost concept would cost us to upgrade multiple features of the building. It can be an a la carte. It can be we pick and choose what we want to do, but these are some rough figures on what some upgrades to that facility would look like price point wise. Some additional info on Coronado regarding expense and operating. This breaks down what our costs were for fiscal 23 and what our revenue generation was. Now keep in mind the revenue generation is based strictly off rentals. We additionally have a line dancing instructor and we had a yoga instructor. I believe the yoga instructor just recently pulled out and is no longer offering. So those instructors also pay monthly dues to us, but the lion's share of the revenue is generated from rentals. Coronado rents at $25 an hour and is managed by the staff at the Brandon Center. Some revenue and expense at leisure services facilities in general, just for cost analysis and concept-wise. The Brandon Center, obviously, is the main facility we look at that WIP for. Expense-wise, excluding staff, last fiscal year, $351,000. I pulled the expense for the staff out to break it down side by side and wanted to give you a snapshot of what each facility costs operating staff and generates in revenue. I excluded Babe James because Babe James is kind of hard to pull because that's our administrative hub. And I was having a difficult time kind of really capturing that when I was trying to pull these figures and put them together for you. Staffing. This is a current snapshot of the Leisure Services Department in an org chart. Currently, I believe there's 57 employees in the department. Obviously, by view of this chart, the bulk of those employees come from the golf course. We have a large assortment of part-time golf attendants, but golf is obviously one of the 6 divisions in the department. Recently, the commission approved the addition of the skate park staffing. Currently in the process of working with HR to get those positions filled. We are striving to have those positions filled ASAP and get those guys onboarded and the shop up to speed. An additional request that we'll be pursuing with your approval would be the reclassification of 2 positions within the existing structure of the department. The first is the reclassification of our current athletics manager and our athletics coordinator. We want to make those 2 positions recreation coordinators and recreation managers. This would allow those positions to supervise and be more intertwined with the department rather than more niched into strictly athletics. With the addition of the skate park, the chain of command would be more streamlined. As you can see, the skate park, which you can see in purple on the screen, is moved from the left-hand side of the org chart, which currently the skate park employees would report to Michelle, our assistant director. Under this, they would report to our recreation program coordinator, which would report to our recreation manager, and streamline the department efficiency. Additionally, the next phase of my proposal would allow for a special projects coordinator to come into the department. And what special projects coordinator means is it's basically a marketing position. Extensively, we've had a lot of feedback from commission, citizens internally from our staff about the need to develop a city website with all events, or improve our social media content, or things along those nature. I want to implement a year-end report where I capture all of the department's achievements, revenue generation, attendance, put all that together where it's strictly leisure services, not necessarily a finance report, but it gives you a better picture of what the department truly does. But I need a person to specialize in that. That's my priority number one in the positions I ask for. I know that we've talked about facilities and generating revenue at Live Oak specifically. I recently presented to you at a commission meeting. This person I would house at that complex, and one of their prime focuses would be on facility promotion and marketing to help us boost the revenue generation at our facilities department-wide. That kind of gives you a snapshot of what I'm looking for in that special projects coordinator. Additionally, I'll have a request for an administrative specialist, an entry-level admin. Currently, the department has an admin, or a contracts admin, which serves as a mid-admin, and then we have an admin 3. This would give us more of a tiered approach with our administrative structure, and this position's needed for facility reservations. I want to introduce a concept that allows us to generate revenue off pickleball for indoor athletic play for pickleball, volleyball, and adult basketball, so adult indoor activities. But I need somebody at the building to be able to do that, and that's what this position does. This final phase is a crew lead for the sports complex maintenance team. Currently, all positions at the sports complex on our maintenance staff, we have 5. We have 1 irrigation tech and 4 equipment operators. This would reclass one of those positions to be a crew lead, to kind of give us just a little more supervision and direction and guidance, rather than being as reliant on the athletics manager if he was to be reclassed to a recreation manager. And with that, that concludes my presentation.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate that. City Manager?
We'll just wait to hear from your questions.
Very good. Commissioner Perrine.
Thank you, Rob. I have a question. When you're looking at the lights on the pickleball courts, which courts are you going to phase those in, a few a year, or?
Sure. So the lights for pickleball would be at Page Park, which is the new facility we're building off Glencoe. Strictly at Page is where we're looking for that concept.
So supply and demand always on these parks and recreation leisure services, and that changes. If 20 years ago it was all about tennis, now it's all about pickleball. Golf is still strong no matter where you are. You know, people have their tendencies and things they like, and we're a beach town and a tourist town, and we kind of cater to some of the older citizens at times.
Absolutely.
So, question on this. I was at pickleball courts, 2 days ago, and I noticed that they already have cracks in them. How often do you have to resurface these because of our sunshine?
Sure. So hard courts whether it's pickleball, tennis, basketball, will crack. That's part of what hard courts do. Recently, this fiscal year, we did the hard court resurfacing at Pettis for pickleball and tennis, and then at Rocco for tennis, pickleball, basketball. The life cycle of a court could be anywhere between 10 to 15 years. It just depends. Cracks will happen before that life cycle's up, but playability of the courts is really what's important, because if there's a crack, and it's a small crack or it's on the exterior of the playing surface, you don't have to replace the whole court. But if the cracking is, like at Pettis and Rocco, those courts were in really rough shape. The playing courts were 100% impacted, and you couldn't play safely without that. So it's a case basis, really.
Okay, that surprises me. 10 to 15 years is pretty good for that. We all drilled at the Ormond Beach, Holly Hill.
Sure.
You know, it's beautiful. They have lighting. You can play at night. Supply and demand. You know, everybody loves that. And they got a lot of ECHO grant money, and we wish we could all be like that, but we're not. So with supply and demand of people wanting these new courts, we could install lights. And I noticed in the hottest part of the day this week, no one was at the courts because it was 80 degrees playing pickleball, you'd pass out. But you having lights, you could play at night. So I would guess that eventually you could start with Page and then test that to see how occupied these courts are and how much in use. They're going to be using Page as an example with nighttime play?
That would be something we could potentially look at. I've brought the concept of lights at pickleball to the commission in the past. One of the really sensitive topics that we have to consider with this is a lot of our courts are located in neighborhoods. Obviously, Live Oak has housing right next to it. Detweiler is right in the middle of a neighborhood. Pettis has residential areas right by it. So if we were to install lights, what's the impact of that going to be on the residents that live adjacent to the parks? So just something to consider. It could be an exploratory approach for us. With Page, we're a little more secluded and we have some buffer, some wooded area that will probably block a lot of that light. And for pickleball, the lights don't have to be like the sports complex lights where they're super tall. It can be much lower lighting because it's not as much of a space. So I don't think it would impact the residents that much at Page. Obviously, we could do a study if that was something we wanted to pursue further. Again, this is conceptually what we're looking at right now. We haven't done the deep dive yet on that.
So go to the Brannon on the operating expenses. I'm seeing a 25% operating expense up compared in relationship to the revenues and also in relationship to the golf course and the other operation expenses. We don't have a 25% increase in operating expenses. Why so much for the Brannon Center?
So the Brannon Center has not, the actual fees that the Brannon Center charges or the expenses of the Brannon Center. We have an overhead operating cost that's built into the budget. That overhead operating cost has increased over the last 3 years from $30,000 to $122,000. And that's not really within my control. That's a number that is generated by finance that increases. My controlled expense within the center is pretty consistent for what it's been over the last 3 years. When we're looking at $140,000 in 20, 228 in 21, 351 in 22, 422 in 23. Sure, I absolutely see that's tripled in 3 years. I don't have, obviously, with the ask of what I'm tasking staff to do with charging for, we're pursuing events and programming, which we haven't done historically. We weren't doing that in 20 and 21. That's something new we've done over the last 2 years. Our operating line for events services is roughly $65,000 to go along with a increase of $90,000 in our overhead. That's $150,000 right there that we weren't necessarily doing 2 years ago. So I've been talking with staff about maximizing our events, about maximizing how we structure and what we pursue at the Brandon Center. I think we might be a little oversaturated right now, and I've talked with some of our team about really trying to have excellent events when we put them on, really high-profile events rather than as many smaller events to maximize the revenue generated. So we have some different strategies that we're working on to continue to generate more revenue, but I think expense-wise, that would be my response to that.
So if you go to Leisure Services Facilities Expense Revenue page, I think my blood pressure just went up about 1,000 points here. I like what you just said. It doesn't, we can increase revenues by whatever percent, but if your costs are going up more than the revenues, we're going backwards.
Sure.
And if you look at this page and we're not utilizing our leisure services facilities, and you're asking for a marketing person, but we have 2 PIOs now for the city. We have one for the police, and we have one that I see Throwback Thursday stuff. I don't understand why the city, if I go out and ask the 32,000 residents about Live Oak, they don't even know what Live Oak is. They don't even know what we do there or what kind of activities we have. We need something, a calendar for the whole city that shows this, and our PIOs can do this with what we have, but I'm just not seeing it. And Coronado Civic Center, I'm going to pick on Lisa's area here a little bit. You know, we need stuff, we need things for that place if we're going to keep it and utilize it. But then if you look at it, it's probably doing the best. Lowest operating expense, more revenue than expenses. You know, so, but I don't know what the building and man MO maintains means. What's MO?
Maintenance ops.
Maintenance ops.
Maintains.
So if you look at that, it's hard to pick on that because it's old and it's been working, and it's the only one that looks like it's doing well.
So
because we're not doing anything with it. It's $25 an hour.
Sure. Yeah, so along those lines, over the last few years, we've gotten kind of a mixed message from the commission on what we want to do with Coronado. Obviously, there's some aesthetics and some upgrades that are needed in the building, but in order to make those upgrades, we have to spend the money. And if we don't spend the money, we keep the operating costs low. So it's which do we want it to be?
And you look at the sports complex, we have $1.2 million in expenses and $230,000 in revenue, and we want to put $2-some million in lighting for that. You know, it's like, okay, I know cities need things to make it an attractive city for people to live in, but we most definitely have to maintain what we have before we keep expanding. Our event centers aren't filled now with what we have. Our expenses keep going up, and the revenues aren't going up in relationship with the expenses. What I like to see with this is the benchmarking that we've been requesting. How do the other cities look in comparison with their sports complexes, their expenses, and if we took Ormond Beach or another city that has pickleball, do they have lights? Do they have, what's their expenses? Do they have a Coronado that's only $25 an hour in a historic area like our Coronado area? And how is it doing? How's it maintained? And our Brandon Center is beautiful. I don't understand why we're not doing better with that. We have 677, 700, 800,000 in expenses and 239,000 in revenue.
So this is last fiscal year, the numbers you're looking at in fiscal '23. If you'll recall, we implemented a new pricing structure this fiscal year. And my goal in my presentation to the commission with the pricing structure that was selected by the commission to pursue was to cover expense outside of staffing. In my proposal, that's what the option that was selected to move forward with. Tracking through halfway through current fiscal year '24, we are up 25% at the Brandon Center in revenue generated in relation to last fiscal. We have generated $165,000 in revenue through March, halfway through fiscal '24, which would put us on pace to be right at or over $300,000. Our fiscal '23 operating expense, excluding staff, was $351,000. In fiscal '22, when I started working with the Brandon Center, we were generating $207,000 in revenue. If we generate almost $100,000 more, that's a 25% jump in year one and a 25% jump in year two. That would have generated $100K over a 2-year span in additional revenue.
Why would we exclude staff? We could outsource if we're going to exclude staff.
That was the direction I received from the City Commission.
I think that's all I have for now.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Rob. And Commissioner Hartman.
Rob, thanks for your report. I have just a couple things I want to touch base on. On the Page Park pickleball courts, with phase one, are we putting in the infrastructure in place now for restrooms and lighting? Or are we looking at digging the place back up if we go along with phase two?
So currently, we are not putting infrastructure in for lights to fit within the budget of the current project. We are looking at putting in the infrastructure needed for the restroom in the center concourse between the dog park and the courts. That'll be like the hub. That was something we discussed previously, and with the budget and with what we had to work with, we felt building the lights out now without a guarantee that it was going to happen. We didn't want to fund it and not actually have the lights happen in the future with a limited budget.
But Rob, I think what we could do, I think that's what Commissioner Hartman is getting at. I think what we could do is we could prep for the lights, not put the lights in, but at least prep them in. So this way we could maybe phase it out where, next year or in the next 2 years we could put the lights in. So that's what probably.
What we can do is, because we're still in the conceptual design with Mead and Hunt, is we can have them include that.
Yeah, my thought is just put the conduit in the ground.
Okay.
Push comes to shove, you wasted,
Sure.
a couple $100 or $600 or $800 worth of PVC piping.
Okay.
But we're not digging things back up going forward. I mean, if it gets used, never used, maybe you can go back and retrofit irrigation lines through that,
Sure.
if that's what you want to do at some point in the future.
Okay.
But I think that's important to at least think about that and look at that.
Yes, sir.
I've had 2 complaints already about the lighting at the pickleball courts, and we haven't even broken ground. On Page.
You mean,
From the lights?
I've had 2 residents
No.
call me, tell me, do not put lights on that pickleball court because they're going to shine right in my backyard. Why are you not having public meetings? Why do we not know about this? And I said, why did you not come to last year's budget session? So.
Real quick, I just heard that this feed isn't working. People are texting in publicly, so.
Okay, good to hear. Kelly, maybe you can fill the live feed's not working. Thanks.
Back up and everything, they're not able to watch this.
So that's where we are with that. With regards to the sports complex, it also includes the football field.
Yes.
So it's lighting throughout.
Whole thing.
Okay. I've always been a proponent proponent of that. I think that's the way to go. I think in the long run, we're saving money on utility costs. So you have a better control of the lighting in the area. So, you know, I certainly would support that. How we get there is the other question. And along with that, you've been so good about addressing fee schedules with the Brannan and Live Oak and everything else. Have you looked at that aspect of the sports complex? Specifically, the school board, with them using the football field, they've not paid any increases in years, yet we've astroturfed the thing, we've redone the track, and now we're talking about sports lighting, so they need to pay for a higher venue.
Yes, sir. So we have an agreement with the school board that allows them to utilize our football stadium for their games and practices. That agreement is set to expire, I believe, next year. So with that initial agreement, Colin, you'll probably know more than I if you want to speak to it, please.
Yeah, it does expire, I think, next year. Also, they have participated in when we replaced the bleachers out there.
Right.
So that was the deal. So they paid, I think, half of the time, and then we had the agreement with them. And it does expire, I think it's either 25 or 26. So at that time, we could go back and approach the school board.
Okay, a question on the Brannan Center. You've given us the revenue dollars, and does that include the free time that we've given away at Brannan Center?
No.
Do you have any idea how much free time we've given away?
I do. I don't have it offhand, but
Okay,
yes.
but it's a considerable amount of money, I would think.
Greatly reduced.
Right.
Once we did the revamp and fee structure, we went away from the freebies necessarily. So most of the time that's given away is primarily given away for internal city events. Like if we're having a town hall or PD's doing something there, it's mostly
State of the city.
It's
that
mostly
sort of
stuff like that.
thing.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but also other agencies. So, you know, if
Right.
the DOT is having a public meeting
Yeah.
for a project, or the county, I mean, they utilize the
Or
buildings.
FDOT or some, and so that's just something to keep in the back of our
It's
minds.
yes.
From the lack of revenue side. I certainly do appreciate your staffing changes that you're recommending. I think that's a better flow. I think that helps with the work process, so I certainly do appreciate that. And that's all I have at this time.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Commissioner Martin?
Okay, a couple of questions here on the facilities. When we talk about expenses, what is included in expenses? Is depreciation included?
No.
Are employee benefits included? Are the materials that we use to clean included? I mean, when we say the word expense, I think of it as being everything associated, but if we are leaving out things like depreciation and employee
this
benefits?
is strictly expense that I could earmark and pull from our budget that was labeled for these facilities. So if it's a departmental where we bought bulk of janitorial supply, right?
Mm-hmm.
We have paper towels on hand and we bought for the whole department. That's not built into this.
Okay. What about employee benefits? Are we using salary or are we using total package?
It's total package, Commissioner.
Okay, cool. What about depreciation of the facility and no, so depreciation's not included.
This is strictly operating.
Okay, now if we use additional, I'm looking at parsing the amount of time that employee may be used in more than one department.
Yes.
So
That
if
is
it's-
included. That is included.
That is included. Okay, thank you. I am so pleased to see the Coronado Civic Center is the one and only place operating in the black. And of course, that is the one that has received the least attention. And is clearly and I thank you so much for showing why it deserves a refresh. And because it can be used a lot more. And I'm really in favor of revenue exceeding expense. It's one of my favorite, kind of balancing acts there. So I'd love to see, a little more of that. And I think it has earned its right to improvement. How's that? But I also wonder, since you're talking about ECHO grants, can the playground and Coronado Civic, are either of those with projects eligible for ECHO?
I don't know if Coronado would be eligible because it can't be replacement for the ECHO grant. It has to be new. All right. No, I have it backwards.
I think if you use some, maybe like a cultural component.
Yeah, that's what I
Yeah.
was looking at, the
Yeah,
cultural.
I think you could. I think
Yeah,
you could
and
apply.
Detweiler could be outdoor,
Yeah,
right?
But it has to be, you have to use one of the components in the
Exactly,
grant
but
criteria.
that is very much a historic area there.
We can, whichever projects are selected to move forward with, we can certainly pursue an ECHO for whichever those will be.
Super. I would say that before we put a lot of money into the Detweiler Pavilion, that playground equipment is, well, metal, meaning too hot to play on, and lacks sufficient shading, and is, I believe, over 30 years old. So as we look, I believe, but I could be wrong, some of that wonderful recycled plastic playground equipment, I think should be a higher priority than a viewing pavilion, because it's been there longer, and I know that the woman who's done the Adopt a Park program for that has replaced all the basketball hoops repeatedly. So other aspects of that neighborhood park should be prioritized. We've done a lot of work on the pickleball courts. We've done a lot of work for them. Let's give a little bit of attention to the residents, the neighbors, the visitors, and make sure that they have an area of which we can all be proud.
And if I recall, commissioners, we have done a park master plan some time back. And I think we need to go back and look at the master plan and see where Detweiler is in terms of whether the maintenance replacement, and follow that.
Which is fine, but obviously we have a proposal for something new, so let's go back and look at that master plan before we, start adding something new when maybe we need to maintain and upscale that which is already there. I am concerned about another marketing manager. Separate leisure services, PIO and website. We are already running so far in the red for so many of our leisure activities. I'm not sure, again, having that propensity for that revenue expense ratio, adding a major hit to that expense side has me concerned. And last on my list is the Page Park. Is that going to require an aerobic septic system for bathrooms?
Which one?
Page Park, my understanding that as of the first of the year, 2024, new septic systems all have to be aerobic septic systems.
You talking about the pickleball courts?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, right. I'm sorry.
I don't know offhand. We have not received the 90% back yet from Mead and Hunt. So.
Well, why I'm asking is that the aerobic septic tanks or septic systems, I understand, are wildly more expensive than the anaerobic ones. And so it's a major new cost component.
Well, we'll check on that component when we receive the plan. We'll talk to the utilities. They might. I don't know if they could run any sewer out there or not. But if not, I mean, there is so many methods for the septic system as long as it's
Yeah,
permitted
I'm
by
just
the
looking at the
department.
new mandates that went in for the state on January 1st.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Commissioner McGurk?
Thank you. Rob, you're gonna want to pull your hair out, but I want to just hit a couple, 4 or 5 issues real quick. Please, the pickleball courts next to the Humane Society. I'd say where exactly are they going to be, but that could be complicated, so I'm going to ask it this way. the current dog park, are the pickleball courts going to be to the east or the west of the current dog park?
On,
I could answer that.
What do you mean on?
they're gonna, so,
Oh, okay, never mind. So we're moving the facility, the dog park.
yeah, so the plan, which we have not gotten the 90% back yet, the plan is to kind of tie it all together. So, I can show you.
Well, I got a pretty good understanding. You have the dog kennels, you got an empty lot, you got some woods, and then you have the dog park. So I got a pretty good understanding of
Correct,
the
so
area.
there's gonna be a blend of the courts, the dog park, like that. So on the existing footprint of the dog park here's the square.
Yes.
Right? So we're gonna put the courts here, the dog park's gonna go around it with something in the middle, with the bathrooms in the middle.
Okay.
That's the vision.
So that empty lot right now in back of the kennels is not where the courts are gonna be?
Correct.
Awesome, thank you, perfect. I think that we have to have lights. You've hit the nail on the head. No one wants lights. Everyone complains about the lights. Someone's already complained, you got someone in your... The issue with the pickleball courts is there's 2 times of the day you're gonna use them. You're gonna use them in the morning, you use them at night. All the people who still work need to use them at night. All the people who are retired use them during the day. We're gonna lose a tremendous amount of value of those courts if we do not add lights. People in New Smyrna have to travel to Port Orange to play on a lighted court, or Holly Hill. So people have to travel. So there has to be, these courts that we're building need to have lights. I understand the issue with lighting around neighborhoods. We already, I'll talk to you about it, but I think in the budget, we need to have lights at that facility. Definitely, as Commissioner Hartman said, we need to do the underground work so we can just run the wires, put the poles up at the minimum. So I think that's a big loss for the project. LED lights at the sports complex. League of Cities Conference, I spent, and within 1.5 minutes, Russ and I were talking to a company that provides them. And I just want to stress, they're never a cost savings. They cost a lot more. They will not last 25 years. I have transitioned to my lights to LED lighting around my business. I buy a bulb for my home that says 10,000 hours. None of that has ever been. So I want to make clear, from a financial and a budget meeting, LED lights make absolutely no sense. However, if we want to do it initiative, if we want to do it because we cannot get the traditional lights and the whole world is moving past, I get it. That's a cost that we're going to have to deal with. Clearly, when the hurricanes came through and we had the soccer fields didn't have lights for an extended period of time. So in that context, you're talking to me. But in the context of any kind of, cost savings, there's nothing, it costs a lot more to do the LED lights. So that is something that I think is a big enough expense that we need to address that issue more specifically. You need to get the commission to address specifically, because if we continue to buy more of the older style lights, and then we make the decision that we're going to go all LED, you need a better decision from us with that large of an expense on exactly where we want to go so you can move in that. It sounds funny, we don't have a playground at the sports complex, but I don't think we have room for it. We need open fields. We need open fields all around. Kids playing football, catch, soccer. The dog park needed to go there, but there's a lot of people who disliked it because it took up open, empty field space. The sports, I see more families out there where kids run around and play catch with a football while the brother's playing baseball. I'm not saying it's a bad decision. I'm saying that we keep taking away open space, and I would just like to see that. So unless there is some really unique situation where there's a large group of people demanding that, I'm not so sure that a playground is a good idea there.
The playground that we're proposing is not on any open field space. It's actually, if you're familiar with where the Miracle League field, the playground is, it's
Generally, yes.
directly behind that, like on the back side of that. It's on the footprint between the concession stand
Yeah.
and, so this would not reduce any open field space, but I 100% agree with you that we need more fields, absolutely.
Okay. And then finally, the Coronado Civic Center. I think we need to make a decision on what we are going to do with that. I think that the Civic Center there on Flagler had a use 50 years ago. I don't think it has a specific use. As it sits today, the value is not in that specific building. I think we need it for parking. I think it doesn't, it's not there's nothing of any true value that's coming from that. And I think the value is outside of that. So I think we need to make a decision on the Coronado Civic Center. Probably, in my opinion, needs to be removed. Kind of like, hey, we made a decision on that women's club. Maybe, at least we made a decision. But we keep treading over the same old things all the time because there's too many different opinions, but I think that we need to make a decision, and I will tell you that I don't see the value of keeping the Coronado Civic Center there for its current use. And Lisa, you may very much disagree with me, but that's my opinion.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Commissioner McGurk. I want to first say that so many of the opinions expressed today are, I could echo verbatim. I'm a capitalist at heart. I didn't realize the city's mission is not to make money, but there is a balance between services that we offer, that we should be offering for our town. I think we do a reasonably good job at that. And giveaways that are a continued money pit. And so with sensitivity toward all of the comments that were made, I chuckle at the tapestry of diversity of we're talking about, soon we'll be talking about the police and the fire, we talked about maintenance ops, and now we're talking about how to keep what I call the cultural integrity of our city. So all those are difference in scale of not importance, but in relative safety to keeping our community under control. So the balance, Rob, the city manager often points out to me that we're not always trying to make money at everything, but it hurts my head, as it does the Vice Mayor's, on some of the revenue to expense ratios that seem to be a growing gap as our expenses climb. And doggone it, I sure would like to see the revenue climb. And the marvel of them all is the Coronado Center, which just blows me away. I mean, it's sad to look at because it's tired and needs something because it does not reflect our values. But it's the one making some money at $25 an hour. Give me a break. Something's wrong. And so you get the beautiful Brandon Center. So I know I push on Khaled all the time, and I know he's got some deadlines set up for you or the Brandon Center. Certainly would favor putting our toe in the water with a public-private partnership to seeing if someone else could run that with a closer break-even and maybe even some margin. No offense to you or your staff. It's just it's a golden opportunity. Other people are doing it well around town and making money, and we're not. We're losing a lot. Calendar work. Boy, attaboy on the calendar work and synchronizing. I know it's been a long time coming, but the more you do, I see you're trying to get all the disparate groups together on a calendar. And I think it goes hand in glove with your permitting process, which may need some tweaks as well. You do a good job of intaking the permits. I'm not sure that the quality of the product they turn in is worth having. Maybe if you had a quality check before before you let them walk off the counter and say, hey, you forgot all these things, that might help.
Real quick
Comment,
on
yes,
that,
sir.
if I can. The chiefs and their staff and building with Gary and planning, and we had a roundtable at Babe James about 2-3 weeks ago regarding the special events application process to process and improve that. Because I know it's broken. Everybody knows it's broken. We are working through shifting the intake application process into Intergov, which is the platform that the building department utilizes for permits and applications. So we're going to put that application in that system, which will streamline and eliminate the need for that, our favorite special event application that we all loathe. So that will be able to make that much more efficient and allow the applicant to, instead of having 2 steps, have 1 step and be able to get that moving and us to review it online rather than have multiple meetings to review applications in person.
Got it. Love the concept, love the idea. I can't wait for the social media to pick up on, okay, for what we did for the building department, we're going to do for leisure services, so that your speed and alacrity of dispatching permits to do it will likely be in balance. I know Colin hates that comment, but I couldn't resist, so I apologize. Yes, echo, go big and go often. They've got money, gobs of money, and they're dying to help. So please go big there. And I don't really, I didn't realize we had to deal with this with the Volusia County School Board. Didn't realize they bought the stand, so that's education for me. But I'm not sure what the missed opportunity is. It's got to be a big revenue thing for them to be able to have football games. I charge money for their football games to go there. So there's something in there. There's some money in there from the Volusia County school system.
I believe when we did the turf upgrade, they might have had a contribution as well to fund that, but I'd have to dig into that a little further. So,
yeah, and maybe some benchmarking from some other counties or something like that. Sports park rental fees, boy, huge park, huge fees. The stories I hear is that giveaways, that's too strong a word, but for those outside, not city sponsored things that come in and rent it, I understand that you could get a lot more money for what you got out there. You got a beautiful facility there.
Along the lines to that, just like we did a review for Live Oak and the Brand Center recently with fee structure, I can bring a proposal to the commission if that's your wish, with a revamp or analysis of sports complex fees that we implement for rentals, and we can look at that and do that.
Over to you, pal. I'm anxious to see it. I don't know if anybody else up here shares that, but it just, when you look at the numbers compared to what you're spending and what you're getting, I don't see it. I don't see a breakdown for marina and a breakdown for golf course. Is that in here and I missed it?
No, there's not a specific revenue slide or a expense revenue. Those two operate in standalone budgets, so I can provide those figures to you.
It'd be good for us to see the whole picture. It's a big, both those are big features.
Sure.
I know we always beat you up on golf course because, from
Sure.
there, how much of the general fund goes into there? Was an enterprise fund, but we never made money and we always had big expenses. I understand it. But between that and marina, I just think those are two big features to our town we ought to know about.
Absolutely. I can give you a quick, just oral report on those. The golf course revenue for this fiscal is up 13.7% through, halfway through in comparison to 23. Roughly, with the marina, we are netting halfway through fiscal 23, $45,000 in profit that will go towards marina reserves. Where we were last year, we were about 12 to date. So we're up significantly at the marina. So I've been doing we with Jim, we've been watching our costs, but we also have that large-scale marina renovation project that's coming up. That's going to be about $297,000. So that's on the books too. So it's a,
Appreciate your oral thing. I'd like something written. I'd like to have Vice
got it.
Mayor's eyes on that for sure. Pictona, is that a city? Is that city-owned?
Property is city-owned.
They charge?
Yes.
It's a privately run.
Privately run, but
Yeah,
the city owns
it's
it,
donated.
and
I think they're retiring soon. too.
they're probably paying some kind of rent or something like that. All this to say, and all of my pickleball friends will hate this, that they're paying for pickleball in Holly Hill, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
$600 a year.
Is that it?
Yeah, for a whole family.
$600 a year? Per family? Oh, okay.
But
There's some money there. I'm just thinking, I mean, we love the pickleballers. It's a growing sport. I got that, but there's no free lunch in the city. We got to, we're paying for stuff. So just me thinking out loud. I could be on an island on that, but it's worth voicing.
Do you, and this would be obviously not direction, just something for consideration. When we look at implementing a fee structure for pickleball or adult activities, athletic activities, there's two types of viewpoints I would like consideration for. We have indoor athletics, where we have pickleball, basketball, volleyball, things along those lines, where we have staff that are able to man and collect fees. But we also have outdoor parks where there's no staff at these places. That's a challenge to collect revenue from passive outdoor parks that are unmanned. So when we're talking about doing these improvements, please keep that in mind when we're investing into the park system, into the quality of life of the citizen, building the amenities that people want to come to New Smyrna Beach for. I need staff that we're pushing back on, occasionally when I need to do these things. It's a balance. I guess that's where
I
I'm going.
understand. And so just to push it on a little harder, think technology, think parking lots, think kiosks that are unmanned, and think the biggest revenue source of our city is our parking lot. So,
10-4. Yes, sir.
all things are possible.
I appreciate that feedback.
Is there a tennis facility out at Glencoe?
Yes, sir.
How's that work? Do we charge money for that?
We don't have any hand in operations. That's managed through a third party. We don't do anything with it.
All right, and I don't know anything about it. So, but I've heard others, citizens raise, "Hey, how's that work?" And I can't answer it. So, not today, but at some point, I think it needs the light shined on it.
I can provide information through the city manager for you on that.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay, that was those were my comments.
Mayor, I have
Yes, ma'am.
something. Thank you for bringing up the tennis, because I had that on my list and I skipped right over it. So the tennis club, they pay for all the maintenance and their own expenses and everything, which makes sense to me because we've got the shuffleboard courts that don't, we have pickleball that doesn't. We have all of these activities that don't do that. And the indoor facility, the private-public partnership, I just attended an economic development meeting where they presented us to have that with a private ownership. So I would like to see your budget coordinated with where are we going with that private-public partnership that you guys talked about on the economic development meeting that you presented. I think Jesse presented that, and where we are. Because again, before we approve a budget, putting money into Coronado Center, we don't have a long-term plan for that. I just did a strategic plan on another board I am. We're looking out 3 years from now. We all put up what our priorities are. We had a consulting team come in, rank those, and if it didn't move towards that 3, 5, 10-year plan, strategic plan, we're not putting money into it. It's got to go forward. What's our plan with this? I would like to see a strategic plan, A, maintaining what we have, B, doing away with what we're not maintaining, because we're not being profitable and we're spinning our wheels on here. Profitable meaning at this point, not even profitable, it's even breaking even. Had I known that the staff expense wasn't in this mindset, I would have passed out. I had no idea we weren't including staff expenses on this. The only time you don't include staff expenses is if you outsource. So, you know, when we're looking at this in general, in the beginning of the budgets, I think we need a break even, including staff, not excluding, and then you're asking for more staff. So with our PI and with the staff we have, again, I mentioned this in briefing and multiple times, we need HR to look at what job descriptions we have that we can't overlap. I've asked with marketing, why aren't we marketing this through our PIO and through that avenue? Are they doing it? And my answer back to me with the calendar and the marketing of that was no. Why don't you have help? Why does this have to come from you? Why can't this come from, you know, the city is a business. We've got to operate it accordingly. So that's my only input. If it's working for the tennis, why can't we work? I went in and visited the Live Oak director and talked to her and asked her how busy she was. There wasn't one person in there, not one. It was, you know, in the afternoon. I asked her, how busy are you? You know, I'm just asking questions, posing a question. So we've got to utilize what we have better if we can. And I know this seems like a thankless job for you, but, you know, we've got to look at these avenues and think outside the box here, because I think what we did this year in the incremental increases isn't going to get us to where we still need to be.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate all those comments. And Rob, we're obviously interested. And one thing we can never do is micromanage you and the city manager and how you guys operate. But you're getting a policy feel of how we like to operate. Everybody up here is hands-on. And so don't feel picked on. And we're grateful for what you're doing. You've taken the place light years from yesteryear. So thank you very much for doing it, and know that we're very interested in everything you do.
Mayor, if I may, I know
Sir.
we're running out of time, but just two comments.
Sir.
One is just for Vice Mayor's comment, the staff expense is including in the operating expense.
On this chart, it's broken off individually so that they
But
can
it's
see.
broken.
Yeah, it's there.
It's broken,
Yeah.
but it's the benefits and the expense of the staff. It's the operating expenses there.
So this, maybe it's the spreadsheet. It says Brandon Center, 351 operating expense, staff expense 290. So we're not supposed to add those two together?
Yeah, the two together would be, that's the total expense.
Minus things like depreciation.
That's the only one that you mentioned that, but everything else is including in the expense thing. But anyway, next time, put them all together. The other comment is for the mayor. Believe me, I want to see every facility that it breaks even. But I could tell you this, the sport complex with the expense of $1 million, I have not seen any sport facility in Volusia County or anywhere in the state of Florida that they break even on the sport complex, because it's just impossible. Now, could we increase the revenue? And that's where we want to work. We want to increase the revenue in terms of to reduce the expense on it. But we have looked at other cities in terms of the sport complex. It's not.
Grateful for
The
that.
Brandon Center, I think there's a potential there to break even on it. And that's, I think, what you see is you see a trend right now. It's increasing, and it's increasing 25%. So hopefully in the next year, we'll have even more. So.
Thank you very much. It's righteous to give our children a place to have sports activities, and maybe that's part of a service the city gives. I'm just looking for the ratio to be closer, that's all. Might I propose, we're at over an hour, maybe an hour and a half behind. Might I propose we do the police department, take the lunch, and then do IT, and we'll shorten the break? All right, so batter up, chief. Thank you for your brief. We will be moving. Sorry, couldn't resist. Or how about this one? You'll be given 3 minutes. This is a monologue. No, you don't like that either. All right.
Where's my millennial? How do I make it?
So Sean, you may as well go home because there's no money left. Time to get to you.
No, yeah, just play. That's why you're up here. Try doing that one. That's how you do it, so I'm not sure. Okay, I guess it's up there. Okay, good afternoon. So our presentation is fairly brief. Talk a little bit about our priorities. So we're on par to continue our strategic initiative of increasing visibility, and primarily because of our increase to staffing. So we're excited about the fact that we'll get into staffing in a minute, but this is the first time that we've been able to say that we have 0 vacancies at the police department. There's a lot of people in training, and that's quite a lengthy tale to get those folks on the street. But in terms of as we look at 2024-25, that is our primary initiative, is to staff some of our specialty units that for a long time have been diminished, starting with, of course, the Marine Patrol. We are still on par to receive the boat, I think, June 10th or so. So we're within 45 days of receiving that. And our goal for 24-25 is to finally initiate what I call directed patrol. And just think in terms of a squad of officers that is agile. So for tourist season, you'll see them assigned to Flagler, Canal Street, any of our beachside tourist destination. They'll be assigned Pedigo bicycles, the golf cart. Basically our idea is we want our officers to be seen, almost be ambassadors of the city. They'll handle the day-to-day call volume on Canal and Flagler, but also just a deterrence for overall crime in the city, and as well as taking some of that work away from our zone units that can then concentrate on some of the areas that don't get as much coverage. We have a goal for 24-25 that we're going to talk about in terms of increased surveillance. We have a strategic plan we've been working on over the last year to add more cameras to our city and then pipe that camera feed into our Crime Watch Center at the police department, as well as the County Intelligence Center. Traffic is always a concern. We know we need to add more resources to our traffic unit. The more motorcycle officers and marked patrol cars that you see on Dixie and 44, the better in terms of deterrence for aggressive driving. So moving on to staffing, we are currently allotted 66 police officers. So currently we have, since I even did this slide, we've onboarded, the additional 5, so we have about 15 in various stages of training. Good news on that is half of those are lateral police officers from out of state and from within state. So the tail on those officers is only about 60 to 90 days typically, whereas a new recruit has to go to the academy for 4.5 months and then complete a 4-month FTO program. Civilian and staff is at 21, and we're not asking for any additional staffing for civilian, and then we'll get into parking in a moment. Like all of the departments, here's our trend in terms of budget. Of course, our biggest increases as well were personnel due to the contract adjustments. Operating expenses continues to go up primarily just as cost of goods and services goes up. So here's the ask for 24-25. Now this is impact fees. This is not a hit to the general fund or to the millage. We are going to be asking for 4 positions. So if you remember last year I asked for 8, we settled for 4. We're asking to do the additional 4 this year, nothing more. No civilian, just 4 corporal positions. The reason we want to do corporal positions is we're starting additional specialty units. So if you think your directed patrol squad, your Marine squad, and your motors and traffic squad that's going to be increased, we need to add some field supervision for those units. We can't expect one sergeant at the police department to manage all those people doing all those different functions. So 4 corporal positions, that cost includes, that cost there is for the vehicles. There's the cost for the corporals. So $410,000 is all in. So benefits, equipment, salaries. So obviously it gets very expensive very quickly because the actual salary cost is about half of that, but 410 is the actual cost to the city. The only other personnel cost, this is something we've been working with HR on. We need to do a slight adjustment to our pay scale in the police department. Currently, our new lieutenants are making more than our captains, which is not good for anybody's morale. So we have to do an adjustment with the captains and deputy chief to bring them up a little bit within the authorized pay scale that already exists. But we needed to do that in a way where we could bring it in front of commission and you're aware of that total cost. So back to vehicles. Impact fee requests, the 4 vehicles would be for those 4 corporals. Those would be purchased with impact fees. That's all in cost of $300,000. We've talked to the commission several times about our plans to expand the police department. So building out the police department will allow us to create covered parking as well as some additional training space. We've been working closely with Shane and Chad on that. So for 24-25, we'll basically call that phase 1, which is just the A&E cost. It'll be impact fees. We're stepping this out as much as we would love to do it now before another hurricane. We're trying to keep this out of the general fund capital improvements ask and do it with impact fees. So phasing it allows us, of course, to receive additional impact fees on an out-year basis. So we're basically replenishing while we're spending. The boathouse, we've attacked this a couple of different ways. The boathouse will be part of the AOB expansion fund grant proposal, but that is what we estimate, $200,000 to $250,000 for the total impact fee cost of constructing that. Here's our actual capital request as it relates to the general fund. The vehicles you already got briefed on. No need to cover that. We completely defer to fleet management and Kevin on that. He's done a great job, and like the other department heads have said, I can't say enough good things about what Kevin has done to wrap up the entire city's fleet and come up with a replacement schedule. So Kevin already covered, I don't know if he mentioned the 2 motorcycles, but we have 2 aged motorcycles that are part of his fleet replacement plan. Other than that, those are the same figures you saw this morning. So those figures are included in the fleet management ask. So this is basically double, so not to be confused. The surveillance that I spoke about earlier, so this year we did add an additional 8 to 10 license plate readers and 2 cameras as a start to our larger strategy of adding more surveillance. So just as a reminder to the commission, license plate readers are positioned at ingress. I call it ingress and egress, but think about roads coming in and leaving the city. And every time you put one, you have to put 2, one coming in and one going out in the same location. So what that does, it allows us to capture a photo, not only of the license plate, but of the driver. We're transitioning from a company called NDI to Flock. And the reason we're doing that, not only the increased technology that comes with Flock, but all of the cities around us and the county have already transitioned to Flock. So it was the decision was kind of taken out of our hands. NDI was a more archaic technology. With Flock, a couple of the benefits are the increased resolution of the photos, but also Flock is tied into FCIC, NCIC, so both national and state level reporting. And with Flock, the officers will have that software on their onboard computers in their cars, and we can set it up to do instant alerts. So if somebody drives into our city and they have a warrant, or they have a suspended driver's license, or any other number of things that we can set up that hot list, it actually feeds it right to our officers on the road. So that's obviously a big improvement for us. But not only that, because of our transition to Flock from NDI, we will have access to all of the other cities and county Flock cameras as well. Told you it was going to be brief.
All right, very good. Thank you for that, Chief. Appreciate your diligence and the pre-briefs that you gave us all ahead of time. Vice Mayor.
I think I asked a lot of the questions at our meeting, so that was really beneficial. Thank you for doing that in advance. But I do have a few. These unmarked vehicles, is this overlapping with what David just presented with the detectives, the lease, or is this different?
So the replacement vehicles that I just had on that slide, it's the same, but we would reduce it by 2 that he wants to transition to leases to allow them to swap out their vehicles more often.
When you go with the lease vehicles, do you have to be cautious on the mileage, or we get charged a penalty for having too many miles in a year?
Kevin's been doing the research. It's through Enterprise, so I can't speak to the cap on the mileage. I don't think there is one, to be honest. And it does include the outfitting of the vehicle.
So we've got about $72,000 per car for your 4 replacements. That's the division into 288. Got about 45,000 in police motorcycles. And then we had a citizen come up Tuesday night and ask, why can't you use more electric bikes?
Glad you brought that up.
Yeah.
So parking. So, you know, that comment, I believe, was in relation to parking staff. And also, to clarify, you know, the recently approved Ford Maverick that we had to replace, I did a little more checking, meaning I had fleet management educate me further. So the garage told me something I didn't realize. So the chassis on that Ford Maverick is hollow. So that particular vehicle, it was more apt to rust earlier. Now this, leave aside the coating, you know, that clearly is a solution. We need to coat, and we're very strict at the police department. We make all of our officers, to include parking staff, wash their vehicles every couple of days to do what we can to continually clean that undercarriage. But there is a specific, so not to be confused with all of the city's fleet, but there is something that we now need to watch out for in terms of purchasing, in that those hollow tube chassis are something that we're going to have to factor in as a potential earlier replacement cost. But again, I leave that to Kevin, who's all over that in terms of, you know, we go to him and say we need unmarked vehicles, and he gives us the subject matter expertise of what to stay away from or what to invest in.
Perfect.
Yeah.
How many
and
of
parking.
those do we have in the parking?
We only have 2 Maverick trucks.
So once those are done, then we probably won't go that direction again.
So while you approved a replacement Maverick, we're well aware, so we will work through fleet to make sure that we make a good decision in replacing that vehicle. Again, all we're interested in is a vehicle that is appropriate for parking enforcement. The Mavericks are a very small truck, and it was dual purpose having 2 of them because we have 11 parking kiosks. If there's poor weather, we got to pull those back to the police department. But to circle back on the comment by the citizen, which I thought, you know, it's not the first time that I've heard that. Our average age of a parking enforcement officer is over 60, and our square mileage of our city is 40 square miles. And our parking has to respond from, on any given day, of the 3 or 4 that are working, from Flagler all the way out to Venetian Bay. It's just not realistic to assume that they're going to take a electric bicycle all that way, nor would it be safe to expect them to do
I
that.
just had a highlight.
Yep.
We listen to the public.
Yes,
so.
absolutely.
At length, we talked about the boathouse because this is a big expense. I don't like seeing our equipment rust and, you know, be in the elements. And I love the idea of the presence out there where we need it. We're putting a lot of investment into this area, which kudos because I'm proud of the city collecting money from the area and parking. It shows that what past boards did very successful in collecting fees that we hadn't in years ago, and we're putting it back into the city. And what a way to look forward to put back into the city with the presence of the police there as well. So if we're gonna put all this money in a boat and a new unit and we vote on this, how nice is it to have it right there? You know, where people, there's a lot of fights there, there's a lot of alcohol involved, cars and trucks in the water and, you know, that from tempers. And I love that idea. I don't know how we can afford it if we can, if it's going to be a priority for this board. But everything you told me, if you want to hit on those highlights, I ask, can't we tow this boat for a year back and forth until we have the money to do that if the ECHO grant doesn't come through? Because I thought we really need that, but do we need it like right now?
Yeah,
This minute, and you had good answers.
Yep, and just to reiterate that, Commissioner, by including it in the larger AOB project, it's going to be 2 years before that boathouse is built. So we have already brokered, trees with our partners in town where we can keep the boat. It's the way I look at it is operational. So yes, there's always the high visibility and deterrence of having that off the AOB. I think as a long-term plan, assuming fine comes through, that's a terrific option, and we're willing to be patient to do it the right way. In the meantime, we'll likely have it out at the Coast Guard for the simple reason we don't want to keep it in the water. The larger part of the boathouse is the lift that lifts it out of the salt water every day. So I'm less concerned with the boathouse itself, which is great to keep it from, people that want to mess with it. I'm more concerned with the lift to take it out of the water for longevity of the motor and the boat itself. But that said, just to put it in perspective of what it looks like on an operational day, my goal is to keep the boat on the water on all nice boating days, right? So while I say 7 days a week, we know, weather impacts boating, and there'll be certain days those officers will be doing other things. But any day where the weather's nice and the boats are on the water, we want to have our boat on the water, which means if it's at the Coast Guard, they got to drive all the way to, the Inland Peninsula to go to the Coast Guard we'll keep the boat there. We're not going to trailer it back and forth to the police department, but they'll need to obviously, load it into the water and then take it out every day and wash it, and put it away. That's fine. It probably takes, I'm guessing, an extra 90 minutes of patrol time out of that day where they're, dealing with a boat, and we'll gain that 90 minutes or so back when the boathouse is built. But we'll operationally make it work one way or the other.
Will you know if this grant will be approved or not before we start tweaking this budget?
I don't think so.
From what we gathered from the district commissioner for fines, that they will be approving only one. We submitted 2 applications. So there's a possibility that we might not. However, I had asked our CIP and our consultant to reach out to find to see if we could maybe reduce the size of the docks that we have and include this one. And I have not heard back of what their outcome was. So there's a possibility that it might not be in this budget, and it might be. But we'll let you know when we submit the budget in June.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that. Commissioner McGurk.
Thank you, Chief. As Vice Mayor said, appreciate the meeting up front. I deeply approve what you're doing. The vision that you have is fantastic. I love the network of the cameras and you taking this police force to the staffing levels we need and the technology and the advancements that we need to be able to respond to the future situations coming. We know they're coming, and I'm thrilled that I feel that the department is going to be able to have the resources to be able to respond to events, as opposed to seeing an event happen and then having to go back and say, okay, what do we have to do to deal with this in the future, kind of like spring break. So I like the little things that have happened that has made you and allowed you to be proactive. And I just want you to know that I support everything you're doing going forward. Everything from the police boat to the cameras. I do want to ask one question. I ask it, I think I know the answer, but I've had some questions. People ask me about it. The license plate readers and the cameras you're putting up are not going to be used for red light ticket offenses, moving violations. Is that correct?
Yeah, two very different things. License plate readers are strictly to notify us of things that are ongoing. In other words, somebody with a criminal warrant is driving into our town, somebody that's wanted in somebody else's investigation. A red light camera is something entirely different and not something we're interested in investing in.
Okay, great. I like your evaluation of the police boat. It takes a long time to get those things built. And I'm glad that the Coast Guard is working with you all to allow you to keep the boat on a lift there. That's fantastic. I don't have any more questions. Thank you.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it. Commissioner Martin.
Just a couple of things, and I thank you. One of the things, and this may be better answered by Thomas Farmer, is as we are planning lifetime spans for replacement of hardware assets or hard assets, I am aware that technology, as you pointed out with your license plate reader, has an even shorter lifespan now than many of our vehicles and buildings. So I'm wondering if we are building into our budget the reality that we are going to have increasing technology replacement costs.
So, great point, Commissioner, and we spent a lot of quality time lately with Thomas talking about how to attack this, and we do follow his lead. But one great thing is our flock contract is a lease. So what it is, it's an initial cost of, let's say a surveillance camera of.
Oh, I understand, but nevertheless, we know that they have all the IT on which we rely, every single piece of it, has a relatively short lifespan because of changes or integration issues or middleware, as Kevin called it. So it's just something that I'm realizing we really need to take into account as we budget. Other question, and this is, and you can tell, the Maverick, what I have been asked is why don't we just rent a truck to pick up kiosks when and if it's needed, rather than have another Maverick versus Escort?
So, are you assuming that the cost of the truck is more than what the cost of, let's say, a Ford Escape would be for parking?
Well, that was my assumption, and what was it, 40,000 or something for the Maverick?
They're almost exactly the same. Kevin sat down, went over the numbers with me, and we're not, the cost is very negligible in the difference between an Escape and a Maverick.
Well, okay, but operationally, I don't know if they're the same, and you talked about the hollow tubes, so
Yeah, so
there could be, additional reasons.
what you would do, though, then, is you would have a parking enforcement vehicle that they use to do parking enforcement, and then we would have an additional cost to go and rent a vehicle. I don't know if that would be the way we'd
Well,
want to
it
go
would
either.
depend, again, I don't know what the operational differences are, the maintenance requirements, miles per hour, those kinds of components, I don't know. But it was just something that has been brought to me that sometimes we buy things for maybe once a year usage, where perhaps it would be better to rent for that once a year usage when and if we need it, and use a less expensive alternative for standard.
Sure.
Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate that. Commissioner Hartman.
Just two comments. The first being, on one of your slides, is that the new police car that we're going to, the Lamborghini, or was that just?
Yes.
I like
slide
that,
in there.
a good idea. And the other was, appreciate the pre-meeting. It certainly takes a lot of time. It allows some more questions. But recently, the CSA officer that we have, 2 hours in the morning, she was with a disabled vehicle on Washington Street. Another 2 hours in the afternoon, she's with a disabled vehicle on State Road 44. my hat goes off to her. That's a lot of time, you know, just doing nothing but traffic control. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, one thing I'd like to add, Commissioner, thank you for that. So if you remember, you all approved 2 additional CSAs this last year using the parking budget. We just completed our annual report, which will be coming to you guys within probably the next week or two. So parking tickets, which is of course the only source of revenue that actually comes back to the city, was 900 last year, almost 1,600 this year in terms of parking tickets written. So there is definitely a return on that investment.
But is that collectible dollars?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Nothing for speeding? Do we get revenue for
I
speeding?
wish.
tickets?
I get accused of that all the time by anybody that's on the receiving end of a speeding ticket, but no, that goes to the state.
Got it, okay. Hey, thank you for being here, you and the DC for being here. I appreciate both of you guys being present. And a comment about most of the folks that I hear about that interact with you, and I do get calls regularly about people wanting to get their tickets fixed and what have you, is the essence of service which you exude along with the DC, and it goes all the way down to the first ranks. And so that's a secret sauce, and it fixes lots of imperfections, which we all have. So I commend you for that. Alongside your spring break success, which was huge and undeniable, is a question about directing congestion generally, mostly over in Commissioner Martin's section over the bridge. Weekends, busy times, and what have you. And now that you're nearly fully staffed, last few to come through the pipeline, maybe that's your answer. I love the presence, but I hate the congestion, and it's just moving the congestion along in a layman's term. I don't, or my view, I don't know if that's all there is, but it just seems to me that soft intervention of a human element with a brain rather than a timer on a light would fix a lot of that any weekend, any day, any high tide event, and I don't know how to get there. So tantamount to that, companion question, your cops, your citizens on patrol, and their efficacy, I don't know if that's a solution for you or what training would be involved. I'm not sure we can afford to have full-time sworn officers directing traffic as much as I would like to see traffic directed, but I sure would like a cheaper solution, and I'd like it more often than not. Any comments?
Yes. So, we tried something a little different this spring break that, went unnoticed because it wasn't an issue. And, we generally don't get feedback unless it's an issue. But we actually positioned all of our community service officers and a majority of our parking on North Beach during spring break with very clear instructions. No more are we going to allow anybody to wait in an intersection. We're not going to allow people to block driveways. We're not going to allow people to park illegally. So what you didn't see was a very concerted effort on our part to keep quite a few resources on North Beach to prevent those things from happening. And this was, of course, the first special event where we were towing vehicles that were coming in and parking up against the stop signs and the wrong way and all the other silly stuff that we see during our holiday weekends. What we need to get to, Mayor, is exactly what you're talking about, and doing that on weekends beyond spring break. We're well aware of that. I agree with you. That's not a sworn police officer, but potentially there's an intermediate solution to that, where that's more CSAs. We'll come back to you with that. One thing I want to highlight, we've never seen what 66 police officers looks like. 70, with these 4. The most we've ever had out there really is 40 to 45. So let us get those people through training, staff up our traffic unit, and see what that looks like. We hosted something I'm pretty proud of. It took 2 years to pull it off, but we, the DC and I, and Heather went through a staffing study training to get certified on doing staffing studies. Our goal is to get to 70 and then just hold and watch the growth of the city. We believe that's enough police officers to deal with everything being thrown at us in 2024. And then when we come back to the commission, having 70 officers that we feel is adequate, it'll be directly tied to an actual staffing study to say, all right, we're seeing this growth of the city, these are our issues, and here is exactly how the police department should grow to match that city growth.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Is there a play for confiscated vehicles to fill a role in filling our fleet out? I know that in some organizations, one that in the Navy, we could confiscate boats and we would turn them into our own use, and it free source, and usually they're high-end equipment, and so I don't know if you've got that opportunity at the local level or not.
It's something that Shay and I have talked about. There she is. It's something that Shay and I have talked about. The issue that we run into, yes, there is a mechanism to do that. The issue that we run into in a city of our size is it needs to be a vehicle that's roadworthy and it needs to be paid off. Otherwise, the city is paying that auto loan off. So that doesn't leave us with much to pick from. But if we come across that, absolutely, I'll work with Shay to see if we can supplement.
Awesome. Thank you very much. Appreciate all you do. Ma'am, any follow-up?
A question based on what you just said. It triggered something I had thought of from our meeting. So congrats on getting the retention of the police officers and all you've done. And you just commented that you want to get 70 and then hold. Hold for how long? What was that year that you said that should be good through?
So instead of putting a time on it, I would say, based on everything we're seeing right now, both the calls that we respond to and requests from citizens for police response, we think that 70 is the right number. As the city grows and those requirements change, then we'll be forced to grow with it.
So basing that on population growth, if we're at 32,000 people, I know, and we're growing out west, our idea with everything that's going out west, that's obviously going to grow a lot if it happens and we vote on that. But is it possible, since this is a $12 million wish list, that we can stagger those police officers in a few a year instead of, how many did you need this year?
4.
4. Well, that's not a big stagger.
It's not. No,
Yeah.
we purposely kept our ask simple this year. The 4 is what we believe we need, and remember, those are corporals, not police officers. I can't just convert police officers to corporals without your approval, so those are that first level of supervisory officer. That's really about 10% more than a police officer costs, so we're not spending up, significantly. We know we need those. I hesitate to try to break 4 down to an acceptable number, but we understand that budget is what it is.
And I just remembered these are the 4 we didn't give you last year.
That's right.
So just for public knowledge, this is to give what we didn't give last year, and we kind of are staggering in based on, this is the remainder of your needs.
That's correct,
I'm
Commissioner.
going to guess you're going to need more than that when we expand out west. So that clarifies my mind. Thank you.
Okay, so we're at the end. Thank you, Chief,
All right.
for participating here today. Would there be I've got a proposal we can stop for lunch now. Kelly has it all set up in the adjacent room, and then we could reconvene in 30 minutes. Is that long enough? Okay, without objection, let's do it. We're going to recess for 30 minutes.